All right, testing. All right, cool. I'm recording. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to this movies with love. Ironically, this is going to be my talk, I guess, about season 7 of Dexter. Topic revolving around love. So, I like. So I want to talk about love and the theme of the season and everything, a little bit about it. I'm going to get through it kind of quickly because I have about an hour to actually get through this entire season. And my season 6 review was 2 hours, and I didn't have as much notes on it as I did for season 7. But I'm trying to get through this pretty quick. I love how the season starts off real quick. I try to have like a 3 to 5 minute intro, so before I start getting into it. But I like how the season starts off because Dexter isn't having a monologue or isn't talking or anything. It's just him going through his stuff, and it's like it really does capture the emotions of what we're feeling as fans, jumping from the end of season 6 straight into season 7. And I love how the show really connects us emotionally with what's going on the screen. And then you see the credit cards decline, and it's like, oh no, this is it. This is bad things are going to happen. And yeah, I just love it. And then they slowly go back into, it's like, wait, what happened? How did we get here? And then, that us thinking that what's happening, how did we get here? Once we ask ourselves that question mentally, then, Dexter like kind of gets into his backstory, flashback with Deb in the church. So I like how the show, season 7, captures the emotional tension of the audience and transitions it back into where we left off in season 6. I love that. I do want to say that um, Susan, um, the ticket attendant that I just gave him. So all I know about the character Susan is that there's like three different Susans in the series of Dexter. So I was like, why? So I tried to do a little bit of research, and there was a TV show called Suddenly Susan that was created in, I believe, 1996 by Clyde Phillips. And I was like, huh, I wonder if he's attached to that name in some way. But that was an interesting thing. I should have done research on the actress who played her, but I don't know. Maybe next time. The only thing I do know about her is her name was Annie Little, and I believe she is a model. I believe, and the latest thing that I've seen her in was The Forever Purge, which is actually a pretty good movie. But that's all I could find on her actress. Anyway, all right. So the topic of this season is love. That's what I chose to write about or talk about today is love. And yeah, I know the second theme or message of the show is violence, but I'm just going to focus on love. Real quick, I guess since I'm still in the intro time, if you do know about the 7 or the 9 layers of hell, I believe it was the seventh layer that has like 3 sub layers, and the 3 sub layers it can actually be represented in Isaac and his lieutenant, I think, or his sergeant, his lieutenant, and also the third one is represented in this random dude who Isaac and his lieutenant show up, and they're like, hey, you want to protect your family? Then here's the gun. All you have to do is do what you got to do, and then once you do that, then your family will be safe. And he's like, my family for my family. And Isaac shakes his head, yeah. And then he pulls his gun and all that. Um, if you look at the 3 layers of the seventh uh, ring of hell, those 3 characters actually represent those three. I always thought that it was odd. That scene always felt odd for like the last however long I've been watching the show. So going further into looking into it, I found out some stuff, and I was like, what? So when we love somebody, we do stupid things, such as what Deb's doing right now. Logically, Deb sees what's going on. She sees what's happening, but she's like, Dexter, please explain this to me. She's in such denial about what's happening. So yeah, when we are in love with somebody, we can deny we can deny the worst things that they do, and we'll just be torn apart within ourselves on, what do we do? Who are we loyal to? What are we loyal to? Is this situation good or bad? Do I want to see it as good or bad? There's so many factors that come in when we love somebody and something bad or tragic has happened. Personally, I try to give some personal stories to try and help translate. Personally, out here, there was a story happened out here where I live, and what happened was this woman was with her boyfriend, and the woman had a daughter and everything. They got involved with some bad drugs and some bad thing. They were high, they were out of it. And then what happened was, just while they were doing what they were doing, she didn't want to lose, her boyfriend. She was in love with her boyfriend and stuff, and her boyfriend did these unspeakable things to, this woman's child and everything right there in front of her in the room. And she talked about how her daughter was screaming, her child was screaming to help, and she didn't. And it just happened multiple times. And then by the end of it, this girl ended up getting taken into the bathroom and was sadly dismembered. And, you know, put it, and I don't, I won't go any further about the details of all that, but that happened. And I know someone who works in the prison system, so they were there, and updating stories about what happened in prison to this woman. And this woman was in constant denial. She was just like, "Oh, I don't know what happened, and I don't know what's going on, and when do I get to see my daughter again?" And it's like she couldn't comprehend what was obviously done right in front of her, what she obviously saw, what she obviously allowed to happen, and she just couldn't live with herself. So she constantly tried to make up different excuses, to try and justify that she, her love for this man. And yeah, this recording is starting off pretty rough, um really rough, but it is what it is. um so um okay, so right now, I'm watching the DVD kind of go by. I'm looking at these scenes to help me reference. So right here, when you see the blood slide fall as Dexter does what he does to Travis's body and everything, that little piece right there. Um, what makes LaGuerta find that piece and go after Dexter so obsessively? LaGuerta represents Dexter's focus, basically. Like I said, every character in the show represents some kind of psychological aspect of who Dexter is. So now that Dexter has accepted himself as, or has accepted that he is a being of balance, good, evil, sometimes it's necessary to be in the middle. And he's done having that conflict within himself, and he's found his internal balance. Now that he has found that balance within himself, now his human side has to be incorporated with his own balance. His internal human side is represented externally with Deb's character. So in this season, we actually especially early in the season, or throughout the rest of the show, we see how Dexter's struggle now to fully accept and embrace who he is actually accepting the inner human side of who he is. So now Deb and Dexter are now representations of Dexter's internal struggle between how he handles his humanity and how he handles his dark side. Now we've seen that throughout the entire show, but this is the first time we're actually seeing him deal with it. It's not just little things here and there, trying to find this, trying to find that, trying to incorporate this. Now it's full on. You fully accepted your darkness in yourself. So now, what room does your humanity have in your life? So that's the exploration for the rest of the show. And of course, by the end of season 8, we see what happens. But so LaGuerta represents Dexter's focus more. Now I know in the past I've said she represents his sense of authority, but more accurately, it's more of his focus. So like in season 4, LaGuerta and Batista were together, meaning that Dexter's focus was, or yeah, yeah. So Batista's more of like that righteous man type thing, and then LaGuerta is more of the focus. So with those two characters being together, that symbolizes that Dexter is more focused on being a more righteous person, not so much religious righteous, but more of like the family man type of righteous person. So in season 7, he's more focused on love, and being focused on love makes him very sloppy, and making him very sloppy because he's falling in love leaves a gateway opening for him getting caught. Dokes' character represents suspicion and Dexter getting caught, and so LaGuardia represents focus. So now that Dexter's focus is on love, then the love that LaGuardia had for Dokes becomes like that crossroad, that psychological crossroad that kind of gets back into the field of reviving the idea of Dexter getting caught again. Love revives and brings life and all that. So yeah, we see that a lot. Lewis Green's character in this scene. Lewis Green's character. He okay. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint his character exactly because his character originally symbolized, or no, originally was connected to the ice truck killer, but for whatever reason, that storyline was scrapped. But he was supposed to have some kind of connection with him. I hope that they get into that with Dexter Original Sin. I really hope that they bring back that Lewis Green arc situation, and for us fans who knew the backstory behind Lewis Green, the little bit that we did know, I hope that they can kind of give us some justice and bring him back, and bring Lewis Green back in some way in Original Sin, and provide us some kind of connection. And because even if the story was scrapped, it doesn't mean that the mythology wasn't still there. We just weren't exposed to it, and it didn't get fully, expressed the way it did. Um, but yeah, so yeah, so hopefully that happens. But now with this new Lewis Green character, in this season, he mostly symbolizes human conflict. How does one deal with conflict on like a normal base? Not just like let me just kill it and get it over with. Let me just kill this person. Like how do you actually deal? How does your dark psyche deal with having a problem, and how do you deal with it without like going to extreme measures? So you can see that in the Lewis Green character, in correlation with Dexter. So this scene right here with George, or, no, not George. George was the lieutenant. Victor. And there's this scene with Victor and Mike. Mike represents adapting to change, and that was the main theme of season 6. But now Dexter's not really into change. It's more of this new situation. It's not so much about changing, it's about having to like deal with what was already inside of him. So there's just no room for Mike's character in the psychology of Dexter anymore, of how to adapt to change. And there's just no room for him. So he sadly had to be killed off. I understand why. um Dexter's desire to change, you could say, was killed off by the sudden distress of a loved one, and him feeling that way is physically shown with Mike and Victor. But anyway, I can't get too much into that. So my brain's going about 1,000 miles per hour. I still haven't even gotten into my notes, and it's been almost 15 minutes. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so let's see. Falling in love resonates the true nature of one's heart. Yes. Okay, sorry. I was debating on whether or not I should start the recording over, but I'm not. So, Dexter's flashbacks show how he hurt his humanity. And the first flashback, or maybe the only flashback in this episode, was when Deborah was crying and her mom was hugging her, and Dexter was in the dining room. He was looking back at Deb as she was crying. So these flashbacks show um, how Dexter hurt his own humanity growing up, how he hurts Deb, how he treats Deb, how he makes Deb feels is actually how Dexter feels deep down inside himself. Next note, second note for season one: falling in love resonates the true nature of one's heart. A lot of times when we're sad, when we're miserable, when we're upset, what we do is we can't fully connect with who we are at our core truth. What this means is once we do find someone that we love or that loves us or cares about us, everything in life feels right. It feels balanced. And so what we'll do is we'll finally find a comfortable space, and then we will be able to further explore the truth of what's in our heart. So the thing about that is once we do find a very healthy, comfortable foundation or healthy, comfortable space where we can live and exist in, then the truth of what's inside of us or the truth that's in our heart begins to surface. And what that means is we are able to actually go through the journey of finding out who we truly are. When that happens, we see that a lot being played out in individuals who say, I was in love with this person, we loved each other, but then after a short while they changed. And so it wasn't so much of the fact that they've changed, it's more of the fact that they are actually discovering who they are. And sometimes it takes us having love to help us find out who we are. When we are the most balanced, the most secure, and the most happy, then that's when our truth comes out. So when we are deprived of love and everyone is so obsessed with relationships, and it's not so much as the relationship part, it's more of the role of what the relationship is supposed to provide for us on a soulful level that helps us find a foundation that actually helps us build upon a healthy life. Now, because of how we treat relationships in modern society, there is a very strange distortion there. And so we get so obsessed with, oh, look at all this sex stuff and all these naked pictures. And, now I know that stuff's always been around. But, like, because it's so idolized in today's society, what love is supposed to provide for us or give us has been so just changed and so altered, and it's weird because the soul never changes, but us down here and how we live our earthly lives do. So when the soul wants to experience something, it'll give us symptoms of how we get there. But then because of this because of human perception, we perceive it a certain way, and we go after something, and it's like our soul is trying to tell us what we need to do to get there, but our human filter, like, alters what it means to get what we get or go after that thing. And it's like the soul is like, I'm not worried about all that. If you want a full fulfilling life, you need this thing, you need this energy, you need to go through this process. And once we go there, we have these weird, oh, but wait, society says that's not good, my family says that's not good, people say that that's not good, and your soul is like, forget about all that. This is the energy that you need, this is the energy that you need, this is what you need to connect fully to who you truly are. So that's why love being the most powerful force that is why when we connect to love, connect with love, why it makes things, why we change so much, or we seem to change so much. Really, it's just that we're actually discovering who we truly are. Now, a lot of times you could say, why, when this person was in a relationship or something, why did they end up going after another person or something like that? A lot of times we have this huge label called cheating, and that label has such gravity and we're and because of how much power we've given it, a lot of times it sometimes takes a relationship for someone to know what they want out of a relationship. And then it's not so much as this person wants to cheat on you, or this person wants to hurt you, or they don't care about you. It's not that. It's not that, black and white. A lot of times when someone says, I need to find love, and then when they get love, then they're like, okay, but now I want this, this, and this. And the person who loves me can't offer me these things. And so they'll end up going somewhere else to find it. That's and see, it's weird to say that because people have so many triggers. They have their own definition of what this means, and they idolize the word cheating so much. It's not that simple. But anyways, so just know that falling in love resonates the true nature of one's heart. Now, if someone has a nature of giving love to multiple people, sometimes when they have a dedicated partner, a loyal partner to them, that's what they need for their heart to fully find its original power. But the original power of their heart is that they want to love multiple people in the world, because there's so many people in the world who need to be loved in so many ways. And this one person knows that they can provide that for so many people, and that person may not, those other people may not ever find a love more powerful than what, this one person can give them. But they have a partner, and so the partner is all like, oh, I'm with you and I'm loyal to you. But the person that they're loyal to may be a person whose nature is to give love to multiple partners, but that person may not find that power unless somebody loved them to begin with. But that's just how the heart works. And at some point, in this human journey, we're going to have to start to explore that and have a more healthier relationship with expressing love toward multiple people, and not have it be so weird. But it's not just about relationships. When someone's heart is in the right place and they find love, they find guidance, they find their north star, they find out what they want to do in life. Sometimes a person doesn't want a relationship necessarily. That's not their primary focus. But once they have a relationship, that part of their heart is fulfilled. But then they may neglect that relationship because it's not where their focus is, but it's what their heart or energy center needs in order for them to channel what they truly want to focus on in life. So whereas a relationship or a man or a woman may not be a person's primary focus, they may be obsessed with relationships only because it's not the relationship that they want, but it's what the person provides in the relationship to create that healthy foundation. And once that foundation is filled, then the person has a healthy enough soil to grow in other parts of their life. And they don't have this hole in their structure that's constantly draining them. Um, but yeah, I can't remember what scene of this season actually taught me that. It was in this first season though. um, oh yes, it was that scene when Dexter and Deb were talking in the church, and just like psychological, just analyzing the emotions of that scene. Opened up so much inside of, just opened up so many doors. But um, all right, moving on to the next line because I do have to get through this quick. Getting drunk after a breakup. Yeah, when we're hurt, we want to numb that pain, so we'll drink. We'll do whatever we can to numb the pain that's in our heart or whatever. Um, yeah, that's when something tragic or bad happens to us. When something very painful happens to us, yeah, we'll find a way to, try and fill that hole. That's just the universal nature. That's just the nature of the spirit of water. You have an empty cup and you just throw some water in the cup tries to go to the bottom and fill it. You can't pour water in a cup and the water just like floats there. No, the water's going to fill up as much space as it possibly can. That's just nature. Um, so yeah, when we get that hole, we just want to fill it with something. It's okay to feel, what you need to feel, and have a healthy, grief, says grief, release of it. But yeah, getting drunk, having sex with multiple partners, jumping from partner to partner after a breakup. Um, yeah, we want to fill that hole that's inside of us. Not saying that it's. I don't want to say that. Oh, it's okay. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, just trying to explain that there's a hole there that needs to be filled, and you have to be aware of what that hole is, so you don't try to fill it with the wrong things. Because if you do that, you could have a good heart, and someone can break your heart, and that hole that you're trying to fill, you may fill it with something toxic or bad, and it's going to poison the rest of you. Um, Sometimes we have this thing we have this expression where whatever pain we are feeling inside, we run toward that pain. And what it is it's how we feel inside. And so because it's how we feel, we just express that that's how we feel. And by expressing it, we're living it. Um, and so what we sometimes will do, which season three of Dexter kind of got into it, is what we'll do is we'll express a symptom of what's hurting us. And sometimes the expression of that symptom that's hurting us is to say, you're hurting in this way. This is what needs to be fixed. And so a lot of times, what we'll do is we will say, I'm hurting. This is how I feel. And this is what I want to invest my life into to develop into this direction. And so when that happens, whenever something hurts us, we constantly feed that hole, and we'll constantly fill it with stuff, and it just becomes a black hole that endlessly sucks. Season two got into that too. But what happens is when we constantly feed that hole, we're just feeding it and feeding it because it's expressing pain. And so once it's expressing pain, we think that it's a monster needing to be filled, and then we fill it, and then we feed into it, and then that's when we get into our drinking habits, our certain addictions and things like that. We feed into it, and it's like this black hole is trying to express its hurt, and that we've incorporated it into our identity. We have to be careful with that because sometimes having pain is just an expression that something is missing in our life, and that we just need to focus on giving it a healthy foundation or boundary. And when it does get hurt, when we do get hurt, it's okay. It is okay to, for a time express what you're going through. It's healthy, but at the same time, don't let that hole sit there so long that it becomes a part of your identity. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually not liking this recording, but this, but yeah, hopefully I can still help somebody. Only because I'm only on my fourth note and I have like 30 of them. All right, so trying to read my handwriting on my next note. What panic? Oh, Victor. Oh, okay, cool. Victor's character represents panic, desperation, exposure, and getting caught. Apparently, not like anyway. So I guess that's what Victor kind of represents in a way. And so yeah, Dexter uh had to kill that part of himself. So when Dexter actually kills Victor, he kills that part of himself that was panicking and desperate and oh gosh, you're gonna get caught and exposed and just so yeah, every victim that Dexter kills is actually a representation of a psyche that he's killing off. So yeah. All right, so let's see. Victor getting a pass from Isaac for killing Mike. Yeah, when you love somebody, they'll do something bad, and you'll be like, "Oh, I love that person. It's okay. I hate when people touch my food, but I love that person. It's okay." But yeah, when you do love a person, they will do something terrible or that pisses you off or upsets you. And when you say, "Oh, it's okay," that's how you know that you really love somebody. All right, so going off season two or episode two now. Mike, what? Mike Donovan, George, Valerie, Emmett, and Meridian. Um, I have no idea what any of that means, so I'm going to skip that. Um, what does that mean? Anyway, so for my next note, Harry returns. Oh yes, so Harry's been missing a lot for this season. So with Harry missing, you may wonder, if this is a big time for Dexter, why is Harry not here? So Harry returns after Dexter regrounds himself. When Dexter is able to reground himself and really find himself again, and that's when Harry returns. I believe that was when Dexter was in his apartment is when Harry returns. But Harry had to return could only return when Dexter was in his right state of mind. Otherwise Dexter could have convinced himself or convinced himself out of something important that would ultimately destroy him. But yeah. Next line. What that means is when we are in distress, sometimes the better part of our judgment returns to us after we've found a stable grounding. So sometimes when we're going crazy, emotions are going crazy. We can't. And whenever we're going crazy, someone will come to us and say, "Hey, it's okay, calm down, it's okay." We'll be like, "Don't tell me to stay calm," and then we'll just get even more crazy. We don't have access to that grounded part of us. And so the more you try to ground someone who is actually in an emotional distraught state, in such a way, certain ways, they'll end up creating more and more of a resistance toward the grounding. And they'll just get more and more angry, more and more upset. So in order for Harry to have come back or for a better judgment to come back, sometimes we have to find a state of grounding somewhere first, and then once we get there, we're more receptive to people telling us, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay, calm down." So sometimes emotions and logic don't really mix. So if you're trying to get to a certain desired outcome, sometimes emotions have to match emotions, and once you have that, whoever has the more stable emotional foundation can be what anchors both of them down into a stable grounding. And then you can say it's okay, and then you can slowly ground them back down. But sometimes it takes emotion, it takes crazy to crazy, but that doesn't necessarily mean a violent or aggressive emotion and then you get violent back at them. Sometimes it's just you have to match their energy to a degree. And once you match their energy, you have to know how to diffuse. And as you diffuse them alongside of you. Once you become the dominant, then there's going to be a dominant and a follower. Once you match their energy but become the dominant, then their energy will follow your energy as you slowly start to get back down, zigzag your way back down. I wish I could remember these scenes that I got these from, but every note that I wrote down is what I got of value from that episode, and what I got of value is what I wrote down. So this is all what I've taken away from. So I'm not just making all this up. This is what I got from watching season 7 of Dexter. This is what I got from it. Um, so yeah, when Harry returned to Dexter in his apartment, um, okay, so next line. Deb loves Dexter. So Deb loves Dexter, and she wants to help him, but she wants to keep him morally intact. So yeah, she's a bit forceful. She's like, "I love you, and I got your back. I'll watch after you. Sometimes, when you love somebody, but you see that they're doing something bad, or you think that they're doing something bad, or whatever, sometimes just hovering over them like a vulture is just going to make it worse. When you love somebody, you have to, help them feel balance within themselves, and something you can't just force it out of them. You can't just force them to, you know, be a certain way. And a lot of times, especially as parents or, as a sibling, we'll look at someone that we love and they're like, you know what? I don't like that they play video games. I don't like that they do this. I don't like that they do that. That they go out to eat so much or whatever. And what we'll do is we'll say, I love you and I want to be here for you. And you try to stop them from being a person that you don't understand they need to be. And so, yeah, that's what that note means. Um, she loves him but tries to keep him morally intact, but by standards of her morality. Maria protecting Dokes' legacy. Yeah, Maria loves Dokes. She loves him. So because she loves him so much, of course she's gonna want to protect his legacy. When you love somebody, you want to protect who they are. You want to protect what they've left behind in the world if they're not here anymore. You what? Huh? Irish accent just came out. Anyway, you want to protect everything that they are, who they are, their journey, what they have, what they left, what they leave behind in the world. You want to protect it. That's the intimacy of who they are. That's the intimacy of how they come into the world and how they exist. We're in this physical body, but what we do, what we feel, what we project outward, that's the true essence of who we are. And you want to do what you can to protect them, to protect those people that you love and care about. Um, so yeah, Maria is definitely going to want to protect Doug's legacy. It's very fragile, very very sensitive, and she's not going to just tell everybody. Why didn't LaGuerta just openly tell everybody? It's because this is too fragile, it's too sensitive, and when it's something so important, it's like, you know what, this is too important, and I can't allow other people's energies to get involved and derail this because they don't understand it. So yeah, um, there was a guy who loved Kaja, the stripper, and yeah, when we love somebody, I believe that's called unrequited love. Unrequited love, and that's when you love somebody so much, and you're just like, I'll do anything for you. I truly love this person. I truly feel like I can give up everything in my life for this person, but this person has no feelings for you at all. Unfortunately, yeah, that's a thing that I'm sure many of us have gone through. I hope not. I hope not. But sometimes it's something that we can go through. Sometimes when we feel broken, we go to strippers or, it's the wrong attention and we say, hey, give me love or, help me out here. And then they'll do what they need to do to make us feel a certain way. But then, they leave and it's like, man, that was just kind of there. And then not, and you go back to that same person and they're like, hey, you can't get attached, just doing my job, go away. It's like, oh. But sometimes we fall into that, we get into that situation where we love somebody but they don't love us back, and it's just, before we do something silly or off the top, we just gotta learn to let it go when it's healthy. um at the end of episode 2, I guess Wayne says he wished he could have told Hannah how he felt. I could give a list of names of women that I wish I could have told how I felt. I will say one, but I can't say her name. It hurts to say her name, but I had a she was a close friend, and I never told her how I felt about her fully. The feelings were kind of there, it was kind of there, ish, but I never fully told her. So one day, I anyway, so I never got a chance to tell her. All of a sudden, I find her obituary, and turns out she got shot. She got drunk with a friend, and then they were playing with a gun while being drunk, and he didn't know that it was loaded apparently, and shot her. And there was no one else around. It was just the two of them getting drunk. And so after he shot her, he freaked out and left her there. And she couldn't do anything to help herself after a while. She was just kind of in shock. And after a while, he called the cops. But by the time the cops got there, she bled out way too much. And they couldn't do anything to help her. And then she ended up dying. But after she got shot, if he called the cops right away, the paramedics could have saved her, but he didn't. So she got shot, and then she died, and she's gone. And I never told her how I felt. I've told some people how I felt while they were alive, and I've gotten so much as I'm married, or I've gotten from thank you to that's it. Just a thank you to nothing, to just getting blocked with no response. I've, very rarely has, oh, I have feelings for you too. Rarely has that ever happened, if it ever has, now when I think about it. But I will say that telling someone how you truly feel about them, in my opinion, I say is very important to do so. It's important to know that you have been loved, that someone cared about you. You never know when someone feels like they're gross or disgusting, or no one loves them, or no one cares about them, when this whole time they had like you who loved them and cared about them. They never knew it. Who knows? Maybe they even killed themselves because they felt like they would never be loved. But at the end of the day, you loved them. You never told them, and they felt like it was hopeless, and they did what they did to themselves. You never know. Maybe it's not that extreme, but it could still help a person feel good, feel get some sense of healing to know that they were loved. And it can even give you healing for confessing your love or your feelings for another person. So I say definitely, share how you feel. We only have one life. And even if we do have more than one life, this is the only one life that we have with this version of them, that we're able to say, hey, this is how I feel about you. You guys may come back together in a future life, but what matters is now, what you do now. They're never going to be the same person that they are in this lifetime, no matter how many times they're reincarnated. So just keep that in mind. Um, sorry, 1 second. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Dang it, put my notes so far down. All right, episode. Am I on episode 3 yet? Yeah, so yeah, that's Wayne's wish. He could have told Hannah how he felt. They were still in love with each other. They were in love with each other, but still, telling someone the truth, it's worth 1,000 words. Episode 3, um, leaving someone and giving them space before they blow up. Yes, Deb needs to give Dexter space before he blows up. It's just like having wires that are just tangled up, and you're just trying to untangle the wires, and you can't, and they're knotted, and you're just like, what the heck? You start having a panic attack because you're trying to unknot these wires that got tangled up together. You don't even know how they got tangled up. Yeah, Dexter's gonna go around killing a bunch of people and having bad symptoms. It's like, yeah, you got to give someone space before they blow up. It's important to tell someone, hey, you feeling upset? If you are, I'll give you a little bit of space for you to do what you need to do because I don't want you to feel like you're being smothered and I bug you all the time, you know? So, yeah, it's important to give people space, especially if you love them. Next note, next line. You're not strong unless you feel. Yeah, I guess you could say it's easy to just shut your heart off. When you feel things, you know you have the strength to feel. You know, feeling gives us a lot of power. Gives us a lot of awareness. And it's important to let your heart feel. Um, but it's important that you do that. The next line, being Nadia is scared, but when we're in love, we'll go into these weird defense mechanisms, and like with Quinn being involved with this girl, with Nadia. Um, what will happen is sometimes, like with Nadia, she was scared, and because she was in a scared position, she knew that Joey loved her, and she knew what that meant, and she knew what he would do for her, and so she took advantage and used him in so many ways. Whether or not it was or had bad intentions, sometimes we get into that space and we start to use people. We're just like, you know what, I'm scared, but I know this person can make me not feel scared, so I'm gonna kind of use this person to get what I want to, make me feel a certain way, and then not really care about how they feel about it. I know that they can give me what I need for the moment. So, there's a difference between doing it with bad intention versus doing it because, without bad intention, but anyway, next line. A mother's love would protect her. Um, Okay, so this goes into Wayne's character, Wayne Randall's character. A mother's love would protect her child enough to hoard Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, well, if you're a mother and you love your child, you'll protect your child and the people that you love, to where you'll hide evidence and be like, I knew it was bad that my person that I love did this bad thing, but I love them, wanted to protect them, and it's like, yeah, it's human nature. It's human nature to do that. Like, despite what we feel, what we go through, whatever, it's just the nature of what we are is always being challenged by what we've created for ourselves in this world. And what I mean by that is this life that society has made does not accurately represent the true nature of the human soul. And so when we go through things and we're just like, oh, this was a bad thing that I did, but I wanted to protect my lover, I wanted to protect my child, even though they did this one minorly bad thing, like they stole a candy bar, and your kid, your little 4-year-old stole a candy bar, and the cashier's like, hey, your kid stole that, blah blah. And you're just like, no, they didn't. Get away from my son. Get away from that, blah. And then you defend your person that you love, your child, and then once you're outside, then you tell your kid, hey, that was wrong what you did. I'm gonna have to smack your hand later or something. But no, when you love someone, you want to protect them no matter what. And sometimes people in the world will tell you this is wrong, that's wrong, and then they'll do it, and then you'll be like, I'm still going to protect you even though I know what you did was wrong. That's not always the right thing to do. You have to know the severity. There are different levels of it. I've known people, especially girls in middle school where I grew up at, who will go after a boy, and the boy is like, I'm not interested, and she'll be like, what? And she'll get her brothers, and her brothers will go and like, rough this guy up a little bit or harass this dude, scare him up, and he's like, oh, so you think you can um call my sister the B word, huh? Then you can call her names like that. And it's like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know who your sister is. And it's like, oh, that random girl that tried to flirt with me and I wasn't interested, and she got her brothers and lied. And when that happens, you'll tell the brother, hey, she lied. No, I just asked me for a date and I said no. And the brother's like, oh, okay, that's the truth. Go to his sister. His sister's like, yeah, that's the truth. And the brother will be all like, you know what? He still hurt you. And because of that, I don't like him. And he'll still go after this poor innocent guy. Like, there's level of severities to, like, if someone you love or care about does something stupid, there's a line where you can say, okay, I still got your back, versus you got to suck it up and you got to, be tough. And yeah. All right, next line. Sometimes the thing that we're looking for finds us or is right in front of us. The thing is, a lot of times when we're looking for somebody or we want something, it can be right in front of our face. But we aren't resonant with our truth or our own happiness or our own heart or our own well being enough to realize that, oh, everything that I've ever wanted is actually right here in front of my face the whole time. The house that I've always wanted, the atmosphere I wanted to live in, everything I've always wanted in life was actually here in front of me the whole time. But I was not happy within myself enough to see it or to resonate enough to see it and make peace with it. Now that's different from destroying oneself enough to the point to where they cope with their environment. That's different. This is more of a happiness has always been there, but you yourself were not happy to the point where you relied on your misery so much that it stopped you from seeing that happiness was actually given to you by nature, just by nature. So just know that you have to resonate with happiness and love to, discover where you need to be to find love. Sometimes that perfect partner that you want has always been in front of your face the whole time. You just never knew it until you've gotten to a point in your journey where you were able to handle the love that the two of you could provide for each other. Um, all right, next line. I'm in episode 3. Yeah, let's see. Sometimes the thing. Oh no, I just went through that one. Okay, so this was okay. Okay, ooh, the concept of breaking up and Hannah wanting to move on, but not helping her victims find closure. Whew. Um. Yeah, when we're in a relationship, sometimes we get to that point where we're like, I'm done with this relationship. I think I'm just gonna go now. And you just leave. And you leave your partner behind. You leave someone behind, and they're like, whoa, what happened? I just got ghosted. And that person had no closure. They gave you a piece of their heart, and you knew that you were leaving, so you got your piece of your heart. You had it with you, and you gave them, little bits of energy to make it seem like they had a piece of your heart, when really you had your own heart the whole time. And then they gave you your heart, so now you have yours and theirs. And once they're, reliant on the exchange of energies between the two of you, you're just like, let me just cut the cord, boom. And what happens is when you cut the cord and you just leave, well, you now have this universal cry. Universal cry is when things in the universe connect things to one another, but have no physical link to actually connecting. But these two things will scream. And the thing is, the echoes of these things screaming is what can be felt. So sometimes when you break up with somebody or they break up with you and they just disappear, they leave and you're just like, why can't I why can't I just get this person out of my head? Why you can be in 5 relationships, 6 relationships, and this one person could still be on your mind every single day of your life. You could have gotten married, you could have gotten engaged, you could have gotten married twice, and this one person could still be on your mind. And I'm not saying that and I love this person so much. I'm saying it more of we loved each other and then we separated and things were unfinished, and then now they're stuck in your mind. You're stuck with the echoes bouncing around in your head. You're stuck in an echo chamber that's constantly crying out, what happened, or where is this piece that was once here, providing so much and it's not there anymore. There was no explanation, there was no exchange, there was no talk, there was nothing there. So, and the one person just got their heart and took your heart and just left, and now they're going off and going about the world, do 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 do, um, going from relationship to relationship, bouncing around to different people, breaking a bunch of different people's hearts, and just taking pieces of them, you know. And then maybe one day you run into this person out of nowhere, and as soon as you run into them, you bump into each other, and you just look into each other's eyes, and you say, "Oh, hey." They're like, "Oh, hey." And sometimes it's like, "How are you doing?" It's like, "I'm good." And in that moment that you reconnect, boom, that reconnection allows the energies to pass right back where they need to go. And then you got your energy back, you got a piece of your heart back. And in that moment, you realize the truth. And once you realize that truth, you just say, "All right, have a good day." And then you move on from each other. And then you never think about them ever again and you found closure. Sometimes it just takes that last encounter, that bumping into somebody, that saying hello, that looking into their eyes. Sometimes it's just expressing, how did you feel about me? How did I really feel about you? Sometimes it's one last sexual encounter. Sometimes it's just one last connection that's needed. And once that connection is there, then the peace can happen organically. All right. All right. Next line. Oh yeah. So, don't be mean. Don't be taking people's hearts, breaking their hearts. They deserve closure. If you're just too embarrassed or too scared of what they might think, suck it up. That's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. It's just not fair. Don't be too embarrassed or worried about how someone's going to think of you. So you give them a lifetime of pain to deal with because you didn't want to take 4 seconds, 4 to 20 seconds to deal with a big emotion or a big feeling to give someone peace or to say, hey, maybe we need to break up or something along the lines of that. Now, sometimes you want to break up with somebody, understandable, but physically doing it or saying it is something you don't want because you don't want to be with this person, but them not being around still scares you. And if you just disappear and leave, then you feel like they're not fully gone because you stole a piece of them with you. Because you feel like, oh, maybe they're not fully gone because we never went through that conversation to officially break up. So technically, we're still like, a thing in some way, and then you'll leave, and you're just like, oh, I just didn't want to accept the fact that me and this person weren't going to be together anymore. But I don't want to be with them. But at the same time, I didn't want to accept that we weren't going to be together anymore. You have to make a decision because when you are in a relationship, you have you have to be fair. You have to be. That's not right. And it's gonna come back on you, and you're never gonna find any good relationship within yourself. And your life is just going to be terrible with every partner you come across. Be the mature person, do the right thing, be courageous. Love is about having courage. And if you aren't going to have the courage, then you're never going to have a full sense of love. You're never going to be able to express it or have it. Um, I did not get even halfway through my notes, and I have 5 minutes left. So I'm gonna have to try and find another time to finish these. Let's see how far I can get before. So next note. Let me at least try to finish episode 3. When you meet that special person, you just know love is about truth. Love is truth. When you find that person and you see them, you hear their voice, you see them, you're just like, okay, that's that person. I can name a girl right now who has a few things that go against my own morals or how I feel about things, or things that I will say not morals. I know I could. Let me start over. I know a girl who has some certain pieces of baggage that may seem unfavorable to me, but whenever I look at her or I think about her, I think that one, it's her. I could live the rest of my life with her, no matter what life, no matter what path life takes us down. She's the one that I could see myself being with in my youth, when I was younger, when I was in high school, and even in my adult years. Even though she has kids with other guys, I'm like, you know what? She's still that one for me, and I could still see myself being a father to her children if I have to be. If I have to be, I will step into that role and do the best I can. Like, there are times when you can look at a person and just be like, that's the one right there. No explanation. You just know. Next line. Um, yeah, Dexter puts his guard up to Hannah on instinct because he sees that she's special, and he doesn't really know what that means, what these feelings are. He's so used to burying these feelings of love and romance love, and so he automatically puts his guard up around Hannah because he feels it. But he's like, "What is this?" Um, yeah. So sometimes we'll put our guard up around the people that we love or care about most because of our relationship of the feelings of love. And yeah, next line is oh, Nadia. Okay. Nadia tells a story about when she left. So yeah, I guess when we're young, sometimes we feel like this person's taking care of me. My father, my parent, is taking care of me and a bunch of other kids, and they're suffering. When you love someone who's taking care of you, you see that they're ruining their life for the sake of you. And sometimes you have that feeling of, what if I left? What if I leave to go start my own life because they're suffering, and it's not fair that they're suffering to feed all of us, and I love them so much that I don't want to contribute to them sacrificing. So you leave. Or sometimes they leave you. Just don't have any hard feelings. Just don't have any hard feelings. Just have forgiveness there. And um just don't have anyway, just yeah, don't have any hard feelings. Just have forgiveness. And then, it's understandable when you love somebody so much and you don't want to hurt them anymore and you want to leave. But, sometimes there are good alternatives. Sometimes it is good to talk first, to talk about some things, just talk about it. Don't just up and leave, but if you feel like you want to help and you want to go off on your own so you can build your own legacy and then come back and help out, sometimes that's what you need to do. But just make sure you have some good boundaries there. Some just don't be so hard on yourself when hard decisions have to be made around a subject like that. Just don't be too hard on yourself if you don't have to be. If being hard on yourself is what you need to stay motivated to get somewhere, okay, but don't be so hard on yourself if you don't have to be. And forgive if, just forgive. Just take it easy when you need to. Nadia tells Quinn the truth, and I remember I had a lot to say about that when I wrote it down. Um, but yeah, she tells him the truth. Yes, she tells him the truth because she loves him. And when you love somebody and you see them suffering, you're just like, you know what? Let me tell them the truth about how I feel. Let me tell them the truth of what's going on. And that's normal. It's normal to tell someone the truth once you're falling in love. Sorry, even if you know that the truth might hurt them, just when you love someone, you want to tell them the truth, even if it's hard. When you love someone and someone tells you the truth and it's hard to accept it, you gotta be like, oh, I still love you, or, or not, or whatever. But like, when someone feels good enough to tell you the truth, just be like, oh, okay, I appreciate that, you know, or, just if you don't have to have a harsh reaction to it, don't. But yeah, when someone truly loves you and they care about you, they will tell you the truth. And sometimes that means it hurts, for them to tell you and they know that, but they love you and they want to open up to you and tell you the truth. And sometimes you want to tell other people the truth. You want to tell them the truth about who you are because you love them and you care about them. It's like, yeah. But yeah, it's a normal reaction to have when you love someone. Next line. Speltzer's red flag. Oh, yeah, when someone's being weird and creepy and you see red flags in people and someone, be very careful. Text people, tell them where you are. If you're on a date, if you're going out on a date with someone, make sure someone knows where you're at. Make sure you have, someone looking out for you. I had someone who needed help who called me recently the other day. They said, hey, I need your help with something. It's someone I haven't talked to in a while. So I was like, okay. So I went and I texted like four people, told them my location, told them, just in case this is where I'm at. It was pretty early, so it was out of the blue, but just in case, talked to a few people and told them, yo, I got a phone call from someone I haven't talked to in a while, and they said it was an emergency, so I'm gonna go help them out. But you know, I don't want to get caught up in anything, so this is my location. Don't put yourself in a situation that's going to get you killed or possibly hurt. When you see red flags in people, and I mean real red flags, don't just judge them and be like, yeah, they're a creep, they're gross. Like, nah. When you see real red flags and psychotic people, heed those red flags, heed those warnings. Next line. Um. Okay, so this is a two-parter. Um. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to say this line, these two lines, and hopefully they'll be self explanatory so I can move on. Sometimes staying together destroys both sides, especially when people are who they are, and changing each other by force destroys their individuality or destroys their individual destiny. Um, so sometimes staying together destroys both sides. Um, And especially when people are who they are, and sometimes people want to change each other by force, and by doing that, it changes the individual's destiny or where they need to be or who they need to become. And sometimes being together in a relationship, people don't know how to properly communicate or have the right courage that they need for the relationship. That what happened is they both have these suppressive energies that keep the relationship going, so much so to the fact that they both stop each other from realizing each other's dreams or achieving each other's goals. And they both say it's because I love you. And at the end of the day, they both destroyed each other because in order for them to stay together, they had to both destroy who they were, destroy their own dreams, or destroy their own goals. You can't, don't force the relationship. Don't force it. If it's not natural, if it doesn't naturally flow, then don't force it to work. Don't do that. And sometimes breaking up or separating is what's best for the two of you to grow into who you need to be. And that's it for episode 3. Um, okay, I can do episode 4. I could do episode 4, and episode 5 will have to be done another time. Episode 4. A person's private has nothing. Okay, so a person's private affairs has nothing to do with whether or not they love you. So if they have something personal going on in their life, and they just don't want to tell you, don't be like, oh, they don't love me because they didn't tell me this or they didn't share this with me. It's not always about that. I love somebody, I care about them, but I also have my own personal destiny or I have my own personal passions. And sometimes someone that you love will say, I want to share your passions with you. But when you do share each other's passions, they don't have as much passion for that thing as you do. So what happens is they just kind of hold you back, or they give you some dark looks at it, some dark feelings towards it. And it was like before, when you did this thing on your own, it was amazing and it felt good and you felt connected with yourself. You felt empowered. You felt amazing. You felt happy. And then the person that you opened up and shared it with, you love them, they love you. When you opened it up with them, they were just like, this is stupid. This is goofy. Why is this like this? Why is that like that? You need to do better. You know what I mean? It's just like, bro, I was happy with what I was doing. I was passionate with what I was doing. It's like, yeah, but you could be doing better. And I love you and I don't want you to settle for less. So that's why I'm telling you that what you're doing is stupid. And it's like understandable, but when that gets comes into play, you guys can maybe find a healthy middle ground. But if someone says, and this the note that I'm focusing on, what this note means is that when a person keeps things to themselves or keeps something private, they don't want those energies to be involved in their relationship. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that they don't love you just because they keep it hidden from you. They may love you, but you may be a terrible person who destroys everything. So you want to do the compartmentalization type thing and say I'm gonna isolate this aspect of myself in this area, this these aspects of myself I'll share. So if someone keeps a secret from you, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love you. They're just it's their private affair. It is what it is. All right, next note for season episode 4. Isaac. Oh yes, Isaac equals vengeance, revenge, rage, and frustration. So I bring that up because Isaac's character as a villain represents the rage and the frustration that Dexter feels inside within himself after what happened with Rita. So with Dexter reopening himself up to love, romantic love, I'm not gonna mention season. With Dexter trying to reopen up his heart and reopen up his love, that wound that he feels, that wound that Dexter feels, that anger that he feels from the grief of what happened with Rita, that anger and that vengeance, that rage that he feels inside of him from that moment is manifested as the character of Isaac Serco. And that's why Isaac is such an aggressive, angry, evil person. Now you may think Dexter killed Victor, so Isaac wants to get revenge, and he's angry, and he's going through killing all these people, doing all this crazy stuff. It's the fact that Isaac represents Dexter's grief of someone that he loves, someone who he felt was innocent, someone that he thought was innocent, someone who made the world matter, who made him matter, and that lover is gone. That is what Dexter and Isaac share. And that anger and that rage that Dexter's been holding on inside of him is now having to be addressed now that he's found Hannah, now that he's found a new love. So now that he's found this new love, in order for him to fully open up to her, he has to deal with these deeper core wounds. And these deeper core wounds are how he deals with Isaac. And Isaac is a strong representation of Dexter's internalized is his heart also. So when Rita, not Rita, Hannah gets kidnapped, and Dexter has to kill all the hitmen, there's a therapy session, and I guess I can go into that a little bit later. But yeah, Isaac represents those parts of Dexter. So yeah, that's what makes him the villain of this season, is that Dexter's trying to fall in love again, and he's having to face these wounds, and that's what Isaac is, and it's his internalized wanting to be violent. Um, you see a peak of Isaac Serco's character be manifested in season 5 of Dexter, when Dexter finds that random guy in the bathroom, gets the thing, and murders him in the bathroom. And then Dexter starts screaming, and you know, Harry's like, "That's the first human thing I've seen you do, since you died," and all that. Um, that character who Dexter actually kills in the bathroom, I'm not on season 5, but I guess I'll reference it. That character represented Dexter coping with his grief for Rita, with him saying, F word Rita, forget her. She was stupid anyway. That was him trying to protect himself by looking at his wife, thinking of his wife as, she's dead, and I'm going to have a cold heart for her because, she was there and she's not there. In order to protect myself, I'm just going to say F you and put my middle finger up to her and everything that she was in my life, because she's not here anymore. And grieving for her is just more pain. So if I just built this cold heart and just say F you, then maybe I can protect myself and move on. That guy, that random guy in the bathroom, is what represented that part of Dexter's mind. And so when he and Dexter both, or when Dexter killed him, Dexter was actually killing the part of himself that was manifesting a cold heart for his grieving wife, or him grieving for his wife. Sorry. So that rage of killing that guy in the bathroom, that was the birth. That was a small peak of the birth of Isaac's character, and Dexter. Um, yeah, so that was the psychological birth of Isaac's character. But the living, of Isaac's character, you see it here in season 7. Oh, this I'm watching the scene right now on my DVD is when Isaac and his homie George kills Lewis on Dexter's boat. That scene actually represents, since I'm here, um, Dexter dealing with his human problems through violence or aggression, um, and that's how Dexter wants to deal with his normal emotional, his normal human problems is just by saying, using his wrath and his anger to forcefully get rid of them. Which is pretty dark. Anyway, so yes, my next note for season episode 4. Dexter was protective of Hannah's feelings temporarily. I would have to pop in my next disc to see exactly that scene. But yeah, when you love someone, you care about someone, you care about. Oh, yes, this was the scene when he was interrogating her, and there was something that I believe Dexter was trying to hide. It was a toy or something in the interrogation room, and I think it was a giraffe, or he was trying to hold a piece of evidence back from her to see, and it was because he wanted to protect how she felt instinctively, and didn't want her to feel sad or upset. So he protected her temporarily. Next line. Hannah felt like life was just beginning on the road with Wayne. Yeah, Hannah was saying, yeah, she felt like life was just beginning when she was with Wayne. And yeah, sometimes when we get to that feeling of revelation of love, we're just like, wow, this is what life is about. This is amazing that life is just endless and life can be anything. When you find someone that you fall in love with, especially when you have a broken inner child, when you find love again, you reconnect with that part of yourself that you lost as a child, that saw the world as this endless, infinite void of possibility, of just endlessness. And it's like, wow. So when you fall in love again, you reconnect with that inner child, and then you start acting like a child again. It's like, whoa. But yeah, so that's what that is, that scene. But yeah, and then once you find that revelation, you can express that revelation and create a life with it. Strangely enough, you have to learn how to make proper investments with that energy. Because once you find a revelation, revelation is meant to be invested in your life. And once you find the right healthy investments, then they can keep that energy going. Otherwise, once you peak with that understanding, you peak with that energy, you may end up falling away from it. Oops. You may end up falling away from it after a while. And it may feel like it's just fading, it's because you held on to that peak energy and you didn't invest it into your life in certain areas. Next note is Isaac Hanfelt. Yep, next note of episode 4. Can you still love someone after learning the truth about them? Yeah, that's a question that we have to ask. When you learn the truth about someone you love and care about, can you still live with them? Can you still love them? Can you still care about them? They were always that same person. They were always that person. You just didn't know that side of them. So you just have to really think about it. Can I still love them? Even though I learned this new secret about them. It's like, well, you loved them before, so what's stopping you from loving them now? The fact that you uncovered another layer, you know. So just keep that in mind. Just if you're in that position, you loved them before, you loved them this whole time, but can you still love them? Now that's going to be a dilemma because if someone had a falsehood, this is going to be hard to hear. It's going to be hard to say. It's going to be hard to hear. But if you had a person that you fell in love with, and it was always a freedom, a happy, they were always one sided with you though, but you two loved each other and you built this life on this this whole life on these characteristics and everything. And once you learn something new about them, the danger here, and this is going to be very hard, but where the problem comes in at is now that they've introduced this new element into your relationship, this is another piece to be added into an equation that's already been working. So now that they've revealed another side to you, it's not so much that it's them you're having a hard time loving. It's the fact that they have introduced a piece of themselves or a part of themselves into the relationship aspect or the romantic or aspect of your relationship. And it's like now this is something new that needs to be worked on or handled versus, like it's always been there, but they've always kept that part of themselves separated. Now you can still love these people, you can still love them, but at the same time, sometimes having 100%, sometimes certain parts of each other don't mix. And sometimes pieces have to be put aside for both parties. Sometimes pieces have to be invested elsewhere in order to keep the relationship between the two of you going smoothly. Not all the time. Sometimes everyone can be everyone. But sometimes when you love somebody and you're together, there are pieces of yourself that if you introduce into the relationship, your partner may accept it and they may love it. But then by doing that, they enable it in you. And if there is a bad or destructive piece of you, if they choose to love it and they choose to enable it, they basically enable the nature of those destructive characteristics that you're introducing into the relationship now. And now those destructive characteristics are going to bring the relationship to life, and that may complicate the relationship, and that may allow, you know, other problems down the line to happen. Where you had a healthy foundation somewhere before, now that this new element is inside, a healthy foundation that you had within yourself that's seemingly unrelated is now compromised. And now that that piece is compromised, there's a different part of your life, seemingly unrelated to your relationship, that gets put in danger. And it allows some kind of darkness or some kind of demon to hit the back door of your mind or your emotional well being. And so you just have to be careful on that level. So sometimes when someone says, "Hey, here's a piece of my truth," boom, sometimes you can be like, "Okay, but there's a degree in which this can be in our relationship. Other than that, you are going to have to keep certain parts of it to yourself, or you are going to have to find other outlets to get this done." Now, that can be seen or expressed in relationships. We have romantic relationships, but there are times when the girls need to be with their female friends, or when guys need to be with their friends. You know what I mean. Sometimes you just need a girls' night out. You need the guys' night out. There are certain bonds that a video game or certain bonds that the friends can provide that the romantic relationship cannot. Um, so you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes there's a friend that, yeah, I just said that friend, and you just have to keep that in mind. Sorry if that was loud. Uh, so yeah, so there's that. So yeah, can you still love someone after learning the truth about them? Yes, because you've always loved them. Next line, spelt, spelt. It goes dark side, human side. Oh, okay. Okay, so Speltzer. Oh wow, what a irony! I'm actually watching the scene with Speltzer as he's killing his first victim, which actually this scene was the red flag of episode 3 that I talked about earlier. Anyway, so in episode 4, Speltzer equals Dexter's dark side, and Dexter's human side, in a sense represents the conflict the, between Deb and Dexter on a further level, which is and the trophies and all that. But he's kind of a monster who represents the conflict that Dexter and Deborah are going through, and Speltzer is more of a reminder as to why things need to be a certain way or why things are a certain way. And Spelter also represents a correlation with Dexter and his trophies. And you see that at the mausoleum when you see his trophies with the earrings and things like that. It's because Speltzer represents the trophy system of Dexter's psyche of what he's doing, but also he represents the moral justification of why he does what he does for his dark side and his human side, to have to find some sort of peace together. So, or the conflict between his human and his dark side, and the embracement of his trophy. So when Dexter kills Speltz, that was a symbolism of Dexter killing the internalized conflict between his dark side and his human side, and them coming to a healthy realization that sometimes what needs to be done has to be done for the sake of something better. So that's how Dexter found, that sense of peace within him and his humanity, him and Deb. So yeah, Speltz represents that confliction, but also when Dexter put his trophies on his chest and burned him, it was because Speltzer also represents the trophy system of doing what he does. Dexter had to realize that when he kills people, he's not doing it for trophies. He's not doing it for the sake of the hunt. He has to face the realization that Dexter is killing people because he's trying to kill bad people to help good people live in the system, or to help people live. And he had to be reminded of that. So, um, yeah, very interesting. There's also a correlation here with original sin, but yeah, if you want to further get into that story, well, not really, but it was more of Dexter's journey of finding out. It was more of Dexter's darkness trying to find justification of protecting the innocent. But yeah, that's what Speltz's character represents. Um, well, maybe I have time for Yep, I have time for episode 5. I only have 3 notes. Episode 5 of season 7. When when falling in love, yeah, when falling in love, darkness slips through the cracks. I actually had a conversation about this today. How a lot of times when you fall in love with someone or you feel comfortable with them or you care about them, you start seeing the dark sides of who they are because that's basically in their heart. A lot of the darkness that we go through and experience does stay in our heart space, in our heart center. So when you fall in love with people, the more you fall in love with them, the more darkness you're going to be exposed to with them. You see that when Deborah talks to her therapist and finds out in season 6 that she loves Dexter. So when she says, I love Dexter, she goes to tell him that she loves him. And then, boom, she finds out he's a serial killer. It's like, oh, well, it's like, yeah, well, when you want to get into someone's heart, you see the many sides of them. And, when you are in a relationship, you start seeing a lot of the darkness that's there and a lot of the broken pieces that are there. And sometimes you get inflicted with those broken pieces. It's just how love works. You may see someone, they may be the nicest, most sweetest person. And as soon as you fall in love with them and you get to know them, they end up becoming this dark, miserable, just this mean, ugly person inside. And it's like, why weren't you this way when I met you? And it's like, well, this has always been in my heart, but I've always kept it inside, but I guess now that I love you, now that you're getting into my heart space, you're getting revealed. Like me being sweet and nice and humbled, that's who I have to be because of all the darkness and pain that I hold inside. Because I hold all of it inside, um, It's just buried. It's just there. But because you're so close to my heart, you're feeling those symptoms of what I'm enduring inside. This is what I go through every day of my life. And now that you're falling in love with me, you're going through it too. My problems are starting to become your problems. That's just how it happens. The more you get into someone's heart. Am I still recording? I am. Um, Wait a minute. Where am I? Oh, wait. Um, oh, yes, I'm on the next page. That's fine. So, yeah, when you do fall in love with someone, their dark pieces come out. And when they seem like they're a good person on the outside, sometimes they'll be going through a lot of pain inside. And you'll end up feeling that pain. And, I'm not saying it's wrong or evil. It's just when you get close to someone, that's what you feel. And it's important to have awareness of that kind of knowledge and feelings. Um, Next, no, episode 5. Yeah, next line. Isaac is a Taurus. That which is Taurus is the zodiac sign of passion. So with that, there you go. He's a bull. um, yeah. So Isaac is a Taurus. Dexter's an Aquarius, and just for anyone who cares. And Deb is a what? Is a Sagittarius. Yeah. Oh, the episode is over. Um, the next line. My angel is persistent on Alex's. Oh yes, so Alex. So when Alex was the dude who committed suicide, who had to shoot himself for Isaac and everything, for his family. Um, um, Batista knows something isn't right, and he's trying to do the right thing because he is the voice of righteousness. He's the voice of things that are right. And unfortunately, this is a situation that's so big that he's trying to do the right thing, but it seems like everyone around him is trying to silence him and say, "I understand that you're righteous and you're the voice of right, but no, go away, leave this alone, don't touch it." And so the whole thing about Dexter, or about people or Dexter telling Batista to just let this go, let this go. It's more of Dexter's sense of righteousness is slipping in his mind. You actually see a snippet of this in Dexter Original Sin when that guy killed at the bar, when he killed the bartender, and Batista made a connection between the killer and everything, and Dexter was all like, "Oh no, I can't let him connect these dots," and Dexter was like, "We have bigger things to worry about, and this dude is a criminal. He killed this dude at the bar, so if he did get killed, then I say justice is served. Why dig up problem and everything?" And he was like, "You know what, you're right, I'm gonna focus on more better things." And then you see a snippet of that where Dexter is whispering to his self, his righteousness, or to his voice of righteousness, saying, don't worry about it, don't worry about it, don't justify it, don't worry about it, just worry about other things. And he's actually telling his righteous voice to shut up, basically to be quiet. And so you see that when Batista is being silenced, Batista is wanting to retire after a while because he can't handle it anymore. And this is because in this scene, that was when his righteousness was sorry, being sidelined. Been talking a lot. That is it for episode 5. I guess I'll keep going until you know. All right, so now I am moving on to episode 7. Let me okay, sorry about that. Hoping I can get through this pretty quickly. Episode 7. no, six, episode six, okay, of season seven. Dexter finds, oh yeah, when you love somebody, when you care about them, you make up excuses to try and see them again. Dexter kept trying to find excuses to see Hannah and talk to her because he loved her, he cared about her, he had that romantic feeling for her. I know there was a girl. There's been a few times when I fell in love with a girl, or I liked a girl, and I was like, let me go up. I went to her job and I seen her, and then I was like, oh, she's cute. I want to ask her out on a date, but I've been worried. So then I'll come back another day. I'm like, today would be the day. I'll just ask her on a date real quick. And she got busy, and I couldn't ask her. Or I was like, I'll ask her when she's not so busy at work. Then I'll come in the next day. She'll be in a bad mood, and then come in the next day and she's not there. And I'm just like, well, I don't want to be weird and like ask for her, or I should, but I can't. But I'm here, and I can't just disappear, just come in and leave. I don't know her schedule. So there have been times when that has happened. After a while, it's like some people are like, "Oh, that's creepy." It's like it was it really creepy. I just wanted to ask this girl out, but I keep running into these issues, and it's like, well, maybe I should just give up. But then it's like I still shop there anyway. So it's like, well, but there have been times in the past where I've liked a girl and I wanted to ask her out, but I've been too nervous to. But so I kept finding some kind of excuse to see her, or I have gotten a girl's number and I was like, hey, come get some ice cream with me, or hey, I found this thing, and hey, I know that you like this movie, and I found this movie, and I just want to give it to you real quick. It's just little cute things like that. So just know that's a cute little sign that you like somebody. You try to find an excuse to see him again. Um, we live in such a dark world that talking about that, people may be like, "Oh, that's creepy. That's weird. They're gonna stab you. It's a red flag." It's like, calm down. There's a such thing as innocence, expressing innocent feelings. Good. But I don't know. We live in such a dark world that people look at everything as dark, and they're always constantly in survival mode all the time. And it's like there are still good natured people out there. There are still good natured intentions out there. There are still good feelings out there. But we live in such a world that's so twisted that whatever is good is starting to be expressed as being bad now. It's horrible. 'Cause love is cute. Love doesn't have to be oh, they just want sex out of you. Oh, they're just going to use you for this. It's like, love is real. Love is still around. Anyway, next line. When you like someone, you want to hear about them as much as possible. Yeah, so when you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, yeah, so Janice and so, you want to be like, oh, what about Janice? When you hear this in a conversation, which two people are talking in a conversation, um, and they mention someone that you like, you want to stay there just to hear about that person, even if they're not there. You want to hear about them. That's how you know that you really love somebody or you really like somebody. Is when you want to hear about them, or even when they're not there, or if they are there, they want to hear about their day. When you love someone, you get sucked into their world. I did mention this in season two of Dexter, but yes, as you love someone, and the more you love someone, you get sucked into their reality. If there's someone who's a gardener, you don't know what gardening is, but once you get into a relationship, you learn about gardening. So you get sucked into each other's worlds. And let's see, when falling in love with someone, you get sucked into their world. And where you met them, their energetic, where you met them for the first time, um, energy will amplify. So, um, yeah, where you met this person that you cared about, you'll feel a strong energy there. Um, and when the two of you are there together, energy will amplify. You're like, oh, this feels nice. I love this energy. All right, so moving on to the next line. Um, I think I'm gonna skip that line because it's about the ice truck killer. But I'm gonna skip that line. The next line is Dexter's humanity denied. Oh yes, I talked about that with Batista when he wanted to retire. Um, when Deb denied Batista to investigate, that was when Batista was like, I'm going to go ahead and retire now because I have no right to be here. In Dexter Original Sin, Dexter's darkness, in a sense, silenced or denied Batista. But now, in this season, season 7, Deborah denies Angel and silences Batista. By doing that, Dexter's darkness and his light both denied the righteous voice of Dexter's, and that is Batista. So by doing that, um, Batista said, "I have no space to be here anymore, and I have to leave." Um, all right, now it's time for me to go. So let me get through these last few notes as fast as I can. Finish episode 6. Uh, um, I don't know exactly what that means, but honesty and persistence slash Dexter is asking Hannah. I don't know what that means, but oh well. The next scene is Quinn does silly things for love. Because, yeah, when we fall in love with someone, we'll do stupid things. We'll do silly, goofy things. Because, that's our world. And if it's our world, then all that matters is our world. And we start doing wild, psychotic things sometimes. Don't be that goofy. Don't get a piercing. Don't get tattoos of a person's name because they, like, you know, brushed your hair for a few seconds. You're like, I'm in love. They're everything to me. Don't do that. Next line. Having a little fun. Oh yeah, when Dexter and Hannah have their date and they have a little bit of danger, there's a little bit of danger in their date. Having going doing dangerous things are fun. It's fun to do these little dangerous breaking the rules type thing. Go skinny dipping in the pool for a little bit. Just little things like that. When you're in love, you do these random, silly, dangerous things. It just makes life feel so much more better. You do dangerous things together. Yeah, trying to use love to fill emptiness. Be careful when you do that. You have to give love meaning. And if you give love a meaning to fill an emptiness, sometimes you just acknowledge the emptiness is there and just feed your love into that hole. Be careful. And the last thing is intimacy is darkness revealed and accepted. All right, I will return in a few. All right. Okay, cool. I am resuming my recording later on. I think like 2 seconds passed for you guys, but it's been like a while for me. So anyway, I want to go back and clarify some things. Uh, Now that I have time, in episode 6, I'm on episode 6 at the last note. Um, so in one of my notes, I said, yeah, when falling in love with someone, you get sucked into their world, and the second part of that was where you meet them energetically will amplify. So what I actually meant by that was when you fall in love with someone, when you're attracted to someone, you fall in love with them, whatever your heart space was at the time that you've met this person, wherever your heart was, wherever your intentions were, when you fall in love with somebody and you're in that heart space, well, what happens is where you and that person are energetically, when you fall in love with each other, that energy that intercepted the two of you, it's going to end up amplifying in each other's lives. So if you were in a rebellious phase of your life and you met someone and you fell in love with them, and what will happen is if they were also, rebellious or whatever, um, or wherever they were at, like if you were rebellious, you went through a rebellious phase, and you met someone and the two of you connected and you're like, oh yeah, let's, forget the world. It's all about us versus them, things like that. What'll end up happening is when the two, if you have those feelings within you, yourself, to be rebellious, and if you fall in love with somebody, that rebellious energy will end up amplifying in your life a lot. And so your life will end up going in the momentum of that rebellion. And so you'll start to go in more extreme situations that are in that direction. So whereas Hannah and I almost said Boyd, where Hannah and her boyfriend, Wayne, yes, her boyfriend Wayne. So when Hannah and Wayne go on their spree, and it's just was like, oh, it was a dream, it was a whole little chapter of her life. It was because they fell in love when she was in that, emotional state, and so it amplified, and they went on this whole thing, this whole situation. So just keep that in mind that if you're going through, a certain phase in your life, or you're just going through something in your life, and you meet someone who's on that path, then what's going to happen is they're going to amplify that path you're on. So you have to be very careful. If you are feeling bad and you end up wanting to try, you go to the wrong crowd and you try some drugs, and while you're trying that drug, you find someone and they're just like, oh, hey, and then the two of you end up, getting romantically involved and whatever. You will realize that the drug path that you started, right at the moment, right before you met that person that, you end up starting that relationship with, right before or during, you start that path, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up going down a whole, drug path with this person. And because you met this person, fell in love with them, you're going to end up falling down a whole pathway of drugs. You're going to try different things, and that lifestyle is just going to end up taking over you. If you do a crime, steal something, and in the middle of that crime you meet somebody and you end up falling in love with them, you'll end up, falling down that path of crime. So when you're going through certain phases of your life and you'll probably most likely end up meeting someone of a romantic nature. And when that happens, that energy will amplify. If you go into church, if and you're like, oh, I want to try church, and you're going in there, then you meet somebody, you're just like, hey, how are you? You're like, hey, how are you? And you guys end up meeting at church and you're bonding. Well, what end up happening is, because you guys met there energetically in that space, that's going to be the foundation of how your relationship is going to evolve from there. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that that wasn't a note that I wrote for episode 6 that I did not clarify. The end of episode 6, I needed some time to actually really explain this one. I'm gonna try and be short. The last note I wrote was, intimacy is darkness revealed and accepted. Basically, I believe that's when Dexter and Hannah were together at the end of the episode. I believe episode 6. I want to say that happened earlier, but so when it comes to intimacy and darkness, is that a lot of times when we think about intimacy and what it is, we think about, the beautiful nature of it, like, always hugging your partner, and nature and sunlight, and all this whole romantic setting and everything. There's That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but intimacy at a depth or at a core is really saying, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I resonate, and this is the truth of me. Um, Truth of who I am, especially at the moment, and having someone see that and being able to connect that with someone. The thing about intimacy is it's not always about the beautiful light and the good feelings. Intimacy is about experiencing the true nature of somebody and who they are. So when Dexter, puts his knife out and puts it up to Hannah, and they have their conversation, and then at the end, what happens. It's more like, I'm showing my true darkness to you, and then it's reciprocated, or how retaliated, whatever, reciprocated, however it is. But someone could have gone through a very bad traumatic event, in some way. It could have been violent, it could have been verbally, scarring or something like that. And what will happen is this could end up shaping a person in so many ways, but once you become intimate with that person, especially once you become like sexually intimate, what'll end up happening is the depth of what a person has gone through, especially that pain or that trauma, PTSD, it ends up manifesting into sexual desires. And a lot of times, things that we prefer or like sexually is strongly connected into the things that have affected us the most, deeply, or has hurt us the most, or has traumatized us. So if someone's gone through a bad abuse or something, violence or whatever, what would end up happening, what can happen is to be intimate with that person. Sometimes, what certain people will do is they will reenact that horrible, violent thing or verbal thing, or that thing that hurt them. And being intimate with a person is to actually resonate with that pain and become that pain. And I know that sounds weird, it sounds strange, but there have been people in the world who, have said that they were physically abused, and some, and what happens is they will find these relationships, and they will actually get abused in these relationships, and there's so many mixed up emotions. But when you have these raw conversations, now I'm not saying that it's been like this for every person, that has been talked to, but when you actually have these raw conversations, you'd be surprised, especially with a lot of girls, but you'd be surprised when people would say, I wanted deep down, I wanted my partner to actually reenact my abuse, because whereas the abuse was forced upon in early stages, it created this painful blackness inside their soul. But reenacting it, and sometimes having a sense of love or meaning attached to it, actually reprograms the trauma in a sense. But you need intimacy to get there. So being intimate with a person doesn't always mean happiness. Being intimate means someone has anger issues, and you are enduring the anger of that person and connecting with the anger of that person, because anger is an intimate part of who they are and how they live their life. Intimacy is someone having a mental condition, and you being involved in their life and how they go through the symptoms of that, how they go through the side effects of having a mental illness or mental disease, or having anger issues, or having trauma, or having, sexual pain, or having, you know, things like that. But I don't. It doesn't always have to be negative. Just intimacy is just being connected to with the the true, most impactful nature of who they are. So it can also be a religion or a belief system, or a certain philosophy, or someone may love video games. So now, being in an intimate relationship with them, you now get into a space of, like, video games and things like that. It's just, intimacy is really sharing the depth of what makes a person. And so, when you really get into, physical intimacy, or, sexual intimacy and things like that, you really get more into, like, resonating with that true raw nature of who they are, light or dark. Usually it's dark. Usually when you get into the true nature of a person, it's dark, because when there's a lot of light involved, there's a lot of this is the person I need to be. This is the person that I've molded myself to become. This is the person I need to be strong. This is, that's usually a lot of the light, but a lot of the darkness is usually the raw, I don't really care, I don't care what people think about me or anything like that, or I don't care about the consequences of this, but this is like a truth that I feel inside, and I don't know if it's right or if it's wrong, but I know that this is the true nature of who I am, and or what I am, and it's just I don't know about the outcome or how I'm going to be labeled. It's just so a lot of times intimacy is more on the darker side because there is no type of structure or guidance to it. It's just the raw energy. So anyway, moving on to episode 7. First note: connect to your intimate nature allows you to be intimate with your partner. Which just says with. So when you do connect with the intimate nature of who you are, when you do resonate with it and really embody it more, embody more of you know just what makes you who you are and why that was. And once you're more honest with your emotions, once you really learn how to connect with who you with a lot of who you are, then it becomes a lot better and easier to intimately connect with others or intimately connect with your partner. And once you do that, then you can amplify those parts of yourself a lot more easily. So a lot of times we'll go through something and it will feel like it would break us. We would feel broken and we will actually lose touch with the true nature of who we are, with the true nature of our strength, the true nature of our power, true nature of our intimate side, of our sexual side, of our passionate side, artistic, of our dream side, whatever it is, our creative side, whatever it is. And so once we feel like we've lost touch with that, it's very important to go through the journey of reconnecting with that part that you feel you've lost, or and what I mean by that is if you try and have these intimate bonds and you're not fully there with yourself, then it can just lead to more complications. You could be lost and you could have an intimate connection with somebody and you could just feel even more lost because being with them amplified that energy, that feeling of being lost and confused. And then when that happens, you start to lose more of yourself, simply because you weren't secure with who you truly were. Because you weren't secure, it became a lot easier for you to fall down darker patterns that may be in your field or may be around you, but have not fully impacted in a very big significant sense hasn't impacted your life or the development of your life, but it has mildly affected the production of your life. So your life could be a certain way, it could be broken or whatever, but once you have sex, or sorry, you're intimate for possibly the wrong reasons, then what would end up happening is those broken parts of yourself may actually amplify and your life may develop more into the parts of you that were not secure. So it's important to really have a sense of security when you're intimate with somebody, especially when you are intentionally wanting to be intimate with somebody. It's important to have a lot of awareness and intention of how you want to be intimate with somebody. And once you're intimate with them in that nature, it's easier for the energies to be more confined and be more focused. And so once you start to really develop, you know, with, those intimate energies with somebody else, then your life, your how the energies reproduce, it will just be more focused, more grounded, more grounded. So yeah, be more secure. Uh, Connect with your intimate nature, understand it. Anyway, next line. Find someone who shares your sense of humor. Yeah, I have. You find someone who shares your sense of humor. Um, I think I almost didn't write that line down because of how strange it was. Because some people may have a dark sense of humor, some people may not, and especially living in today's time, today's world, some people just can't take jokes anymore. Unfortunately, when you have a healthy foundation, then you can handle dark jokes. But when you have an unhealthy foundation and someone hits you with a dark joke, it just feels dark and mean and cruel. So it's important that when you have a healthy foundation, you can have dark jokes. But if you have a dark, unhealthy foundation, then, the jokes need to be lighter, if that makes sense. Like, sort of like a yin yang. Um, but yeah, light foundation, dark sense of humor, dark foundation, light sense of humor. So just know what kind of person you have as your partner, and just try to find someone who shares your sense of humor. Because if you're a person who has a dark sense of humor, and you have someone who doesn't have a good foundation, once they hear your dark sense of humor, they're going to be all like, "You're a cruel person, you're evil, and you're mean." And some people are, but like sometimes it is just a dark sense of humor. So find someone who shares your sense of humor, your awkward sense of humor, your dark sense of humor, your, um, coping sense of humor, someone who gets it and who can connect with it. Otherwise, you can come off, you guys could just miss each other, and it can cause a lot of complications in the relationship. So just have understanding with your senses of humor. Next line is for episode 7. When someone loves you, when someone loves you, they don't need to know your story. They feel chemistry. Yeah, so episode 7, I believe, was titled Chemistry. And I was having a very hard time with these last few episodes with these notes. I do remember now when I think about it. But yes, this episode was about chemistry and love, yeah. So yeah, when someone loves you, they don't need to know your story. I know that when I find the right person for me, I've I've been through some dark things, and it's shaped me in so many ways. And sometimes when you have a partner, you're just like, oh, I'm hurting and I'm in pain, and sometimes they're just like, you're in pain, I got you, I'm here for you, and I love you, and I want you to feel better, and I'm here in any way that you need me to be. Sometimes when you try to explain to them what you've been through, they're just like, you don't need to explain it to me. I can see energetically how the how your energy is damaged. And so I want to be here to help balance out that energy. Whatever story, whatever mental story you tell yourself for how you got there is just creating more mental walls and is making it harder for you to heal because you are looking at events and images of things that have happened in the past. You're looking at memories. You're looking at things physically. And so you're trying to like physically go back in time and change things, which instead of energetically, you're seeing the result of how things affected you energetically. And so when you have a partner who can see the damaged energies or the damaged chemistry within you, they can feel it and they can say, I can feel in your heart the result of what's happened to you, and I got you. And we are going to form our relationship by building a more energetically good foundation without having to tell ourselves the past stories of what happened or why it happened. And that actually makes things a lot easier to develop relationships because without the story, there is no limiting solidification of the dark past that has happened to you, and you're not constantly bringing it back to life, constantly reassuring it. The more you talk about it, sometimes the more you reassure it, which can help heal in some degrees. But there are times when we will be able to heal from something, and what we just overindulge in something that was meant to heal us one time. And because we overindulge in it, we end up remanifesting the pain. And well, we just keep talking about it, keep talking about it, keep bringing it up, and keep bringing it up, and keep bringing it back to life. But also, sometimes there are different layers of healing that need to be done. Sometimes one event can break us physically, mentally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And sometimes we will need to go through each of those levels and heal each one of those levels from one traumatic event that happened to, or one event that has happened to us. Um, so it's important to know that there are different layers of healing that need to be done, in so many ways, and our physical bodies or cells do remember when things happen. As Dexter said in season 5, some events are so powerful they change our DNA. So a lot of times our cells, our genetic memories, they keep these traumas locked inside of them. And as we get older, as we start to age, our physical body will actually develop in the direction of something that traumatized us. Sometimes that can lead to health issues. It can lead to weight issues. It can lead to certain illnesses and things like that. And that's why you have like shamanic healers or medicine people, things like that, who are, shamans or whoever who do energy cleansing or Reiki, things like that. A little bit off topic, or I guess not. We're still talking about chemistry, but so yeah, I guess that's all I can really say about that. Yeah, someone loves you. They don't need to know your story. They just need to. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. Next line. Get yourself. Um, you can get yourself in danger when you're in love or in like with someone. I believe this is Joey with his girl Nadia. Just be careful not to get yourself in trouble when you love someone, when you love a girl or you love a guy. Just be very careful you don't fall for the wrong person. You know that this person is wrong, and you're just like, yeah, but I fall for them anyway, and I want to still be with them. Yeah, just be careful about doing that. Try not to do that. Yeah, just try not to get yourself in trouble. Next line is, I believe this is a two-parter. Okay, so yeah, so this Dexter said Lila was drawn to his darkness. Rita was blinded by the darkness. Lumen needed Dexter's darkness, but Hannah accepts Dexter's darkness. And, there's a second part that says Dexter walks away because he will lose control. Okay, so I believe that means that Dexter knows that he will lose himself, or he'll lose control of his guard. He'll lose his guard, his shield that he has around his heart. He knows that he'll lose control of himself if he doesn't walk away from Hannah, because she's given offered him love. She's offered him a chance to unlock his heart, and by offering that chance to unlock his heart, he knows that once that happens, him locking himself away in that dark hole is not gonna he's not gonna be able to maintain it. He's not gonna be able to, be in that fight or flight or freeze survival mode anymore. He's gonna kind of break out of that in a sense. And that scares him to break out of that. But yeah, next line is some element bonds. Wait, some element bonds uh, chemicals somewhere. Hmm. Actually, don't know what I meant by that. Oh, I think that means some elements bound chemicals somewhere. And so. I think what that means is no matter who you pick, no matter what person you pick, or or when you're with a partner, I don't want not to make it complicated. When you're with a partner, your partner, there are going to always be aspects of yourself and aspects of that other person somewhere that connect. Like, even if you guys may have nothing in common, but there may be somewhere that, these chemicals are going to connect. It doesn't really matter, who a person is or whatever. You may not be attracted to them at all, but somewhere, everyone has a relationship somewhere with some part of the human condition, and at somewhere you'll end up, you can, bound with, you can connect with somebody somewhere to some degree. A lot of times we can't even comprehend or see people in the world that aren't on the same mental or energetic level as we are. I know that sounds weird, or that may sound, woke or metaphysical or whatever, or but but it, yeah, sometimes there will be people who have a certain mindset, and you won't even be able to comprehend this person's personality, simply because you are not at that mental level to be able to comprehend that a human being can be that way. Um, so, it's just, a lot of times when certain people are around us, it's because somehow we resonate with them in some way. But anyway, moving on to the next line. Um, oh, episode 8. This episode was Argentina. When things start to calm, things become clear. Once you find this place of peace, once you guys argue or whatever, and you guys get better, you feel better. Once you start having some sense of peace within you, within your relationship, within your partnership, then what happens is what you guys want for the future becomes clear. But if there's too much noise going on, you can't feel clearly where you want the future to go. But things have to be good. Things have to be calm, and then you'll be able to say, "Huh, you know what? I love this person. I love, now that the noise is gone, now that the pain is gone, now that the voice is gone. I know that I love this person. I know how I feel about this person, and I know what I want for the future with this person." Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes when things are calm and there's no chaos, you realize that this is not the partner for you. A lot of times you realize, oh, I really truly love this person, and I want to have a future with them. So just remember that when things are calm, that is when you can think the most clearly. And next line, opening up to someone, with truly opening up to them, means to open up with no fear, um, no judgment, and no panic. When you're in love with someone, you should be able to open up to someone, and there be no panic or no worry. When you open up to someone, there should be no judgments. When you open up to someone, there should be no fear. And when someone opens up to you, you shouldn't make them feel scared. You shouldn't judge them for how they feel, and you shouldn't make them feel like they need to panic. Now, us as a human species, us as humans right now, there is a lot of damage in our heart center as people. There are going to be people who are going to come down here on earth to help heal these heart wounds. They are already here, but a lot of times when we fall in love, the human heart is so traumatized that if something very small happens, very minor, very mild happens, we will have this entire lifetime of a trauma of what we think relationships are, of how we idolize a broken heart, of how we idolize a cold stone heart, how we say, oh no, relationships are like this. We try to put rules and guidelines on love and what the heart should be and how the heart should experience love or love, if some people say if it's even possible or if it's real. The thing is, we are so damaged as a collective group that whenever people bring up love and what love is and what true love is, we just don't even know what that is. We don't know how to handle it. And we have all these different guidelines, all these different barriers and walls and filters trying to filter what love is. So when you truly love someone, you are able to open up, and those filters aren't there. Those barriers aren't there. Those fake survival mechanisms aren't there. So you don't have to fear. You don't have to worry about judgment. You don't have to worry about, panicking. You can go to a healthy space where you can open up, and these things will no longer be an issue. It's important to let yourself have a healthy boundary with those things, with fear, with those, panic and things like that. It's important to allow your heart to open up and to remove those barriers. Otherwise, you're just going to keep attracting relationships and becoming a self fulfilling prophecy where those relationships end up bringing to life those dark barriers that you constantly have up. And when you have a belief system that love is about pain and darkness and your partner's always going to hurt you, when you have that belief system in the back of your head and you're just like, oh, I'm going to wait for someone to prove me wrong, doesn't work that way. Your belief system is still there. When you say, I want someone to prove me wrong, you're the one who has to prove yourself wrong. So when you're putting that on someone else, it doesn't always work out, simply because if they do prove you wrong, you don't know how to cope with it. And you end up just self sabotaging, or you end up causing problems in the relationship, or you completely reject your partner, or yell at your partner, or look at them as their problem because they're actually trying to prove you wrong. They both, you and them, don't know it, but they're proving you wrong, and you don't know how to function with that. And because you can't function, you can't comprehend it, and you go back to what is known and familiar to you, and then you end up becoming this angry demon like problem in the relationship and justifying why it's okay for you to be that way. So it isn't very important to just, be aware of just be aware of that. Just be aware of when you're doing that to someone, when you're doing that to people. um but yeah, yeah, don't put that on people to try and prove you wrong. The next line, still on episode 8, next line. Yeah, when you fall in love with someone, you're going to be picking up each other's habits, and so be careful. It's not doesn't always happen all the time with bigger habits, but sometimes with smaller habits. Like, I was with this girl, and I would always eat chopsticks a certain way. And after being with this girl for a while, hanging out with her, one day I started eating these chopsticks in different ways. She like freaked out. She was like, "Whoa, you eat your chopsticks just like me." And I looked down, and my hands were in this position that they've never been in before. I'm like, "Oh, I don't usually eat like this, so I don't know. Like, I don't know how my brain, just did this and held my chopsticks that way. I've never done that before." And she was like, "Yeah, that's how I do it." And I'm just like, "I don't do it this way." So I guess I might have somehow subconsciously picked it up. And she was like, "Oh, that's cool." So yeah, that's happened before. Sometimes you'll pick up each other's verbal habits. They'll be doing this weird smirk, and sometimes you'll end up doing that same smirk or whatever, or they'll laugh a certain way. You'll end up kind of laughing that way, things like that. Um, Sometimes you'll end up walking in the same pace. You'll end up eating popcorn the same, or eating snacks the same, or having each other's verbal whatever. But yeah, when you fall in love, you'll start picking up each other's habits, body languages, things like that. Next line. You never know. Um, yeah, when you're in love, you never know what to say. Um, I guess this is when Deb confesses her love for Dexter. But yeah, when you're in love, you don't know what to say. You just say it, and it can come out very ugly. And I don't even want to say ugly, but it can come out very just unscripted and just gross. And you may just throw up your words and things like that. It just come out just blah and chaotic, and there could be a lot of tears. It could be, a lot there. But yeah, you never know what to say. Um, Also in this scene, um, this was actually something I was going to cut out. But also in the scene, after Deb confesses, she says Dexter's like, I don't know what to say, Deb, and Deborah was like, oh, you never do. Um, yeah, when we're introduced to something that we are not familiar with mentally, especially with love, and when someone confesses their love to us, sometimes we don't reject it. Sometimes it's just like, whoa, my entire world is just changing right now. My entire world is shifting. Um, yeah, love transcends life. Love transcends death. And when a person dies, your love still stays. That's proof that there is still an afterlife. That proves that their piece of who they are, their soul, there's something is still around. Because if there was nothing on the other side, then when someone died, your feelings or their love or your love for them, it would no longer be there. But you're still connected with them. Uh, anyway, but love also transcends through time, through and I say that because if life has a path for you, if you're going down a path in life, and if you find someone that you love and you choose to love that person, well, you end up creating an entirely new timeline. Because like, have you ever been in we've all been in that situation where we found someone and we've been like, oh, I really like this person, but I'm scared to tell them how I feel, and you start shaking and you get butterflies in your stomach and things like that. So, so on a deeper meaning of what that is when you get those butterflies and everything, if you confess to someone how you love, and if they actually say yes, and if the two of you end up being a thing, you've actually branched a completely new timeline. Now, I know a lot of people don't believe in that, but it's true that if you choose to fall in love with a certain person, your entire life path can change or alter. You can create multiple different timelines by falling in love with somebody. And there was actually a show that explored that, which was the show called Loki. And in that episode, they were being chased by these timekeeper people, these time police or whatever. And when the main characters were like, "Oh, we don't know what to do. We got stuck, in this universe or this timeline where there's an explosion and there's no way we can escape," and they're just like, "I don't know what to do." So once they realized that that was it, that they were about to die and everything, they looked at each other and they were just like, "This is it. We're dying." And so they ended up falling in love in that moment. And I believe they kissed. And once they actually did that, the love that they had for each other in that moment branched a timeline once they realized that they fell in love, and they were able to jump into that timeline and escape. That was the only time that I've ever seen, that I remember that I've ever seen in a fiction or a movie or TV show, that explains that once you pick a love interest in your life, you can change your entire destiny. You can create an entire new entirely new timeline for your life just by who you fall in love with. And I know a lot of people feel that because they say, my life was going in a good direction, but then I fell in love with the wrong person. And when I fell in love with the wrong person, my entire life went south, and everything that I had going for me, I lost. And a lot of people will say that. And that's on a simpler version of what I just said. Anyway, moving on, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm over 2.5 hours. Wow. Moving on to the next, picking up each other's habits. You never know what to say. Okay, so Dexter confront. Okay, so this episode, Dexter confronts Isaac. So Dexter confronts Isaac, but he also confronts his rage, and and yeah, and he also escapes his rage. So this character, so every character that Dexter hunts down, all of his victims that he kills are actually pieces of himself. So in season 5, after the Rita situation, when Dexter was with Lumen during First Blood, the episode First Blood, Dexter finds this guy who goes on the internet and tries to go after other gay men. And once he gets these gay men and lures them for dates, he ends up killing them. So when Dexter, met with this dude, he tried to kill him in the vehicle and everything. And then Lumen calls him. He's like, "Oh man!" So Dexter puts that body in the back of his car, and he drives off. And then gets to the warehouse, and the guy ends up waking up early, and then gets out the car and runs away, gets arrested. That was a victim that Dexter missed. So the symbolism of that actually was after Dexter lost his love, there was the exploration of maybe being homosexual, maybe being gay, or maybe being homosexual. And when Dexter actually goes after this character, and he ends up trying to kill him, and Lumen stops him. Well, that victim who represented Dexter going down the path of homosexuality escapes, which means Dexter never made peace with that side of himself that it wanted to explore the side of no longer falling towards women, but maybe going towards men to escape heartbreak. I thought it was very interesting how the show actually tackled that idea. So when that man escapes in season 5 with the plastic wrap, and Vince gives his story and everything, the loose end of that story arc is remanifested in Isaac's Circle, which is another reason why Isaac Circle is a homosexual character or a gay character. He represents the gay side of Dexter, who was also linked to his heartbreak of women and Rita after he lost her and everything. So now that Dexter is falling in love with Hannah, though that side of him, that homosexual, side of him and everything, along with the grief and the rage, he has a conversation with all those sides of himself and makes peace with it in the bar with Isaac when they confront each other. And then once they make that peace, Dexter makes more peace with those feelings within himself, and is able to further open up his heart to allow love in, or to allow Hannah in. But yeah, all of that grief, all of that rage, all of that, those violent tendencies, all of that anger, it's really being confronted within Dexter's psyche in this moment, that he meets with Isaac. So yeah, the next moving on to the next line. um this was in the bar scene. Love can be innocent, it can be inappropriate, it can be dangerous. And whether or not love is good or wrong, it just depends on where we end up. So if you have an innocent love, if you have an inappropriate love, if you have a dangerous love, sometimes it can be good, or sometimes it can be bad. But however that story ends, wherever we end up at the end of all of that, really depends on if it was right or wrong, how we end up at the end of those stories. But yeah, love transcends everything. And if you do have innocent love and it's good and it's beautiful, then that's fine. It's good. It's nice. Embrace it. If love is a fantasy. It's living it. Nothing wrong with that. Um, uh, if love is inappropriate, if you feel like you have an inappropriate love, um, just go with it. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. There have been so many people who have said, "I love you," and they were like, "I love you too," but the world may not accept us, or no one may accept it, and it's like with these people love each other and it's consensual, then boom, then it may seem inappropriate, and these people may feel like it's inappropriate, but they know that they love each other. And sometimes they say it's not right, and and the world won't accept us, so we have to separate. And sometimes they're just like, you know what, we're going to go for it. We're going to love each other because we are what matters in the world. We're going to go for it. And inappropriate love, uh, you know, through black people were not allowed to have to be in to fall in love. That was considered inappropriate. And it may sound weird, but when it came to black people being in love, it was seen as inappropriate. When it came to lesbians, two women falling in love, it was inappropriate. When it came to two men together, it was inappropriate. When it came to mixing races, it was inappropriate. When it came to age differences of ages being too far apart, it was seen as inappropriate. Um, uh, there's it can even be tax brackets were seen as being inappropriate. Um, when it came to people who were in poor areas versus people that were in rich neighborhoods, if they found love, it was seen as being inappropriate. Now, the thing that people don't understand is all of those seven things that I've just listed. A lot of times, people, especially in the past, I'll say in the past, people in the world did not see one or the other as being more severe than the other. So, as much as that's a hard pill to swallow, whenever there's people who are like, "Oh, we're gay and we're in love, and that's okay," and when you have people who were like, "We're lesbians when we're together and it's okay," and then when you have a relationship where there's someone who's like 20 whatever and they're with a 16-year-old and they're like, "Oh, but we're both in love and we're together," a lot of people will be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on." It's like, nope, nope. In the past, how you feel about that age difference is how majority of the world felt about two men or two women being together. So like that's still an obstacle that we still are dealing with subconsciously as a people. And a lot of people will be like, "No, it's not right. It's disgusting to have someone that's so young being with someone that's so old." And it's like, that same mentality that you have is the same mentality that other people have towards you, and you have to understand that. When you sit here and say, the world has to accept people for being gay, they have to accept, well, how about you ask yourself, look at a couple that are in love that you think is inappropriate or wrong, and you ask yourself, how can you accept it? Don't just whatever excuse you give yourself as to why it's wrong, just ask yourself, can you accept it? And then the shoes. You understand the shoes of your enemies. You understand the hate that the enemies will have toward you. Sometimes it's important to understand why someone hates you in order to create more love in the world or create more acceptance in the world. And again, I'm not really defending any, but I'm just saying, it's how love works. So this scene, in the bar with Dexter and Isaac is very important. It's very important to really analyze that. Dangerous love, Yeah, dangerous love that, I won't give any examples of that because I feel like I'm just gonna create more issues and more problems if I bring that up. But sometimes if a love seems dangerous, it's like, was that dangerous love really right or was it wrong? Was it something that we needed in order to break out of our shell to really explore life and, feel the better in life? Was it necessary for us? You never know. Or did it just lead us down a messed up, more darker path? You never know. But, when you do invest yourself in things like that, there are always going to be warning signs to get out. There's always going to be warning signs when something is going wrong or something is going good, when something is going to go wrong that's going to overall lead you down a bad path, or things are going to go wrong because, or things, you know what I mean? Sometimes things can go wrong that'll ultimately destroy you, but sometimes things are just there to test you. And a lot of times we mix those two concepts together. We're just like, oh, something bad's happening. All I know is that it's bad. So I'm going to treat it all the same. It's like, is it really bad or is it just you being tested to overcome something that is within yourself that you never had the courage to do before until you were tested in this moment, you know? And then once you overcome it, then your heart can expand. Sometimes you have to be with a person who is bad for you to help you unlock certain things about you. But then before you get too deep into that relationship or fall too much in love with them, sometimes you have to get out, and don't be like, oh, but if I leave right now, I'm going to feel bad about it. Like, no, don't do that. That's not what love is about. Don't fall so deep into love that you get into an abusive relationship now and you can't get out, because at this point, if you try to get out, it's going to be more dangerous. Like, if you get to that point where it's like, oh, if I don't get out now, then I know I won't be able to get out for another few decades, for another 20 years. All right. Moving on to the next line. I think that was it. Yes, that was it for episode 8. Moving on to episode 9. Episode 9. I should be able to finish this in the next few minutes. Episode 9. Relying on your enemies when you're desperate for loved ones. Yeah, there will be times when the people that we love will be in bad situations, as with Hannah being kidnapped, and um, people that we dislike, people that we don't like, will say, "Hey, this person that I love, they're in danger." And even though I don't like you, know, I know that I know that you're the only one who can help me. I believe this episode was called Helter Skelter. Yeah, Helter Skelter, I believe was a show that came out. Anyway, so yeah, just know that sometimes we may be in those positions where we may have someone who we love desperately, but then there's someone that we don't like or someone that we hate. And sometimes it becomes necessary to communicate or talk with the person that we dislike for the sake of helping or saving someone that we do love. Sometimes we'll be put in those kind of situations. And, love is so powerful that, yeah, we will sometimes turn to our enemies to help us save them. Um, I don't know if I can offer any advice for that. Honestly, it's just it happens sometimes, but just be careful. Just be careful. Discern, analyze the situation, analyze how it needs to come to a healthy conclusion. Um, yeah, trying to think of the word. I guess conclusion. Closure. Yes, to have a healthy closure, sense of closure. But yeah, next line. Next note. You realize how much you care once a loved one's wait, you realize how much you care once loved ones are lost versus at risk. Or okay, sometimes you realize how much you care about someone when they're at risk and when you're like, oh, they're in a really bad spot and I really do love this person. I care about this person. And you realize how much you love someone once they're in a bad spot and something bad may happen to them, or you may lose them to another relationship, or once you're in that spot, or they're moving away or something, then you realize, oh man, I'm at risk of losing this person, or they're at risk of losing themselves, and you realize how much you truly love that person. Um, the other side is you can also realize how much you love a person once you've lost them, once they're gone. And a lot of times we do that when I've been through that, but you really do realize how much you love someone. Sometimes when you've lost them, or sometimes when they're at risk, or you're at risk of losing them, or they're at risk of losing themselves, or that if they get into this bad relationship, they're going to end up falling into a bad path that's going to ultimately destroy them and their life and the trajectory of how they want to build themselves. You may love someone and know their insecurities and know that if they get into this relationship, that person that they're falling for is going to is going to bring to life those insecurities and use that to destroy that person that you love. And I'm sure a lot of us have been in that situation, and you realize no one is ever going to love this person the way that I do. No one's ever going to love or treat this person the way that I do. And yeah, when they're at risk, when we're about to lose them, that is when we realize how much we love them, cared about them. Moving on to the next line. Um, Isaac, um, let me see. I wrote down Isaac and Dexter's rage stops. I'm going to go ahead and skip that line. So the next line is Dexter accepts Hannah's love. Um, oh, no, 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 no. Okay, I remember that last line. Dexter, or Isaac and Dexter's rage. It stops Dexter from finding love, from finding his love. Um, yeah, so Isaac was trying to talk to Dexter and share love with Dexter, and he's like, "Oh, this person that you love is like this, and in this situation, and all you can do is eat, and someone that I loved, life was in the balance, and I wouldn't be acting like this. I would do this." And Dexter's like blah blah blah, getting angry at Isaac. Isaac was the voice of Dexter's heart and love trying to talk to him, and Dexter's anger and his rage was stopping him from accepting the words that his heart was trying to tell him. His heart being Isaac. Um, yeah, so Isaac was the voice and the embodiment of Dexter's heart when he was going through inside. So yeah, Dexter's rage is what stopped him from finding love. But once that rage stopped, he was able to accept Hannah. But as soon as Dexter's rage stopped and he accepted Hannah and he fell in love with her and accepted that love, well, Dexter's he then yeah he fell in love and accepted and crawled in bed with her and he was like, I feel safe with you. I feel good, and feeling safe is the most important thing in a relationship. Because once you feel safe, then you're able to grow from there securely. Um, Dexter's human side, however, Deb, does not accept this relationship for the simple fact that it is not right. And Dexter knows that this love that he has ultimately is going to be the thing that destroys him. So the characters of Isaac and I believe was it Elway? Yes, I believe Elway was in season 8. But like these characters, they were on to Hannah. They were, and Dexter was just he was just very sloppy. But basically, so like characters like Sal Price and Elway, they were extensions of Dexter's humanity that were saying, "Hey, Dexter, this isn't right. This relationship that you're in, it isn't going to work out. This relationship isn't right. Between the dysfunction, it's it's not going to create a healthy foundation for your humanity. It's creating you're accepting it with your darkness, but like you have to understand that your darkness, your dark side has certain foundations, has certain traits to it, has certain guidelines to it. And this love that you have is it's going to really feed into that darkness. And so what really separated Rita from, Hannah or Lila is that Lila was the love of Dexter's darkness. Rita was the love for Dexter's light. Lumen was the side of Dexter's love, which was the healing side. And Hannah is just the love that balances it all out. So the weird thing, so the thing about that balance is where Rita was good because she was a reflection of Dexter's light. Now that Hannah is balanced between his light and his darkness, there's still going to be that constant struggle of trying to balance it out because Dexter still has his humanity and his human side and his dark sides just cannot mix. Now, when you get into dark sides and human sides, the dark side of a human can also actually be their superhero side, which is Clark Kent and Superman. Um, Not saying that that's his identity, but also Peter Parker and Spider Man and Bruce Banner. No, not Bruce Banner. Bruce Wayne and Batman. The dark side of every one of these human characters of Bruce, Clark and Peter, their dark sides manifest as the superheroes that they are. So when we talk about the dark side, it's not always just that evil side. It's also that superhero alter ego, alter persona, you know, on this earth that human demon monster to the human side type deal. You know what I mean? So it's just like how with Superman, Wonder Woman is like Superman's girl versus Lois Lane is Clark Kent's girl kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like with Peter Parker, Mary Jane is Peter Parker's girl, whereas Gwen Stacy, I believe it was Gwen Stacy, was like Spider Man's girl in a way. Not in a way like you know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Like with Batman has his cat woman or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, things like that. Where there's these alternate personas and things like that. So Hannah represents the love of both sides. And so once you get that balance, you start getting into the Iron Man side of romance, which is Tony Stark and Iron Man. They have Pepper Potts, and Pepper Potts is the love interest of like both in a sense, or Black Canary is the love interest for Green Arrow, both his human side and his superhero side, and they're working side by side. But by doing that, their worlds begin to blend in together, and instead of being compartmentalized, and then that can just create, more internalized issues. Um, Anyway, but yeah, sometimes balance creates a foundation for more chaos. Sometimes balance welcomes the environment for chaos to grow, and that's what ultimately this situation with Hannah is. So, so where Dexter's superhero side or his dark side accepts accepts Hannah. His human side does not accept Hannah because his human side knows the dangers of Hannah and what she brings and her red flags. And his humanity is Deb. So the reason why Deb doesn't like Hannah, why she hates her, is because Deb is human, is Dexter's human side, is his humanity. It's his, you know, talk some sense into him side. All right. So yeah, that's what that is. Deb, Dexter, and Hannah. All right, the last three notes. And I'm actually done with this project altogether. Wow. 3 hours. Wow. Last three notes. Episode 10. The Phantom. Oh, okay. So the Phantom was the dude that was in that suit and would like set fire and everything. That dude, his character in this season represented gaslighting, the idea of gaslighting, which is pretty funny. But he's the gaslighting aspect, and the fact that the Phantom would like stay in the room with his victims, it was more of like a symbolism of Dexter gaslighting himself and him saying he needs to kill and everything, and he has his dark passenger. And then I believe this episode was called The Dark Whatever, and this was the idea of Dexter, yeah, sorry, gaslighting himself, and you know, him saying that his parents destroyed. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so the episode was about just gaslighting and Dexter just gaslighting himself, but also Hannah gaslighting herself, with her dad, just saying, "Oh, my dad will be okay. He will be better this time." And just the episode was just about how we self gaslight ourselves, just to not take responsibility for why we do what we do in our lives, to not take responsibility to why we have certain bad habits, why we have certain unhealthy habits. Just why do we gaslight ourselves to justify why we do bad things? That was the main theme of this episode. Another note that I wrote was sometimes our parents will destroy our sanctuary, this our sanctuary of our heart and how we love. It is strongly dependent on how our parents treat us, on how our parents treated us, how our parents felt about us, things, how they showed what they felt about us, things like that. And so that scene when Hannah's dad runs his truck into the garden, into the greenhouse, that was a symbolism of Hannah's sanctuary, how she gives life, the most intimate part of her light, of her heart, of the most beautiful nature of who she is. That's what her greenhouse represented. And you see this in season 8 when all the plants are dead. It's because Hannah's heart wasn't attended to. So the sense of life that she had within her actually died. And then that's when her and Dexter meet up in season 8 in the greenhouse and everything is dead. But in this season, season 7, you see her dad run his truck in there, and that was a symbolism of her parent destroying the sanctity of her heart. You have to be very, very careful because when it comes to your parents, you may love them, but they may be the ultimate thing that destroys you. They may be the thing that destroys your heart, that hurts you from being able to love. The most beautiful, intimate parts of who you are may be put at risk or may be put in danger, all because of what your parents did, all because we self gaslit ourselves into thinking our parents are okay, maybe they'll change. Maybe if we do this, maybe if we change this about ourselves, we'll be better. Maybe if we change that about ourselves, we'll be better. They'll love me. And then at the end of the day, they just end up cutting deeper into your heart. They end up cutting deeper into parts of you, and they never, maybe they loved you, but at the end of the day, they were the thing that hurt you, that destroyed you. You just have to know when to keep them away, and you just have to know how to not gaslight yourself to justify why they keep hurting you, why they keep doing what they're doing to you, and you have to learn how to let them go. Dexter killing Hannah's dad, it was more symbolic of Dexter accepting, that he has to let go of the gaslighting that he gave himself in his mind of saying, he needs the dark passenger, or the dark passenger is real, things like that. Um, he had to just let that go. He had to let go of that gaslight part of himself. But he also had to have a healthy understanding of letting it go. Whereas, the Phantom, he could kill the Phantom and just, kill that part of himself, but also having a revelation with that part of himself really was represented in him uh, killing Hannah's dad the way that he did. It was a different symbolism in how he got rid of something, how he killed off a part of himself. It wasn't just his darkness killing it off. It was his understanding that caused the death of that part of himself that gaslit. So that's why Dexter killed Hannah's dad in that different way. He killed him with an understanding, with a new revelation, not just with a knife and kill you in the plastic room and all that. Um, so I also wrote in this episode, Hannah wanted to support Dexter, um, but didn't know how. She didn't understand him, but she still wanted to support him, but she didn't understand why he was the way that he was, and that caused some conflict. That will happen, when you don't understand why a person is the way they are, but you still want to be supportive. That's normal in every relationship. Just don't be so mean. Don't be so mean about it or aggressive, or I guess sometimes you have to be. Sometimes you are. Just work through it. Just work through it with each other, and just work through it when it comes to trying to support someone but not understanding them or their point of view. Um, Hannah was also stressed and going through her own stuff, so she was angry, and her unable to understand came out as being very aggressive and cold hearted, but she still loved him and still wanted to support him. Just learn how to balance that out. Learn how to balance out when your partner is agitated. Be careful about being vulnerable with your partner when you know they're not in a good mental state to give you proper support. Sometimes their defense mechanism is to destroy anything that's kind or vulnerable or loving. And so when you are in a position where you're trying to be vulnerable to them, but they're in a position where they're in survival mode, they're going to end up attacking your weakness. You're going to end up attacking you because you're weak. And it may just be an involuntary thing. So just be very careful when you're with your partner. Understand their rhythms and work around their rhythms, and know when you need to be vulnerable with them, and know when it's appropriate not to be. So yeah, that was episode 10, the dark whatever. Episode 11, or maybe episode 11 was the dark whatever. Yeah, wait. So yeah, no. Episode 11 was "Do You See What I See?" Um. Oh, okay. So actually, wrote it's episode 10 and 11. So I have these notes for 10 and 11. So yeah. So let's see. Deb does not accept Hannah, but also Hannah does not accept Deb. And yeah, that is the fact that Dexter's love is not fully invested into his humanity. Dexter's love is more focused on other things, but like Dexter's humanity can't 100% thrive in his life because of the dark side of the balance scale. So the human and the monster inside of him, are balanced, but they can't really balance each other out because Dexter's human side would have to be corrupted in order to fully accept Hannah, accept this kind of love, to accept this version of love, that the inner human of the superhero would have to die. And that's where the conflict comes in, is trying to keep that part alive. When Deb does accept Hannah, then Dexter's humanity does become corrupted. And then that shows that Deb becomes corrupted. And she's like, "Oh, I'm okay with you killing people now." And it just becomes Dexter's like, "Cool, no longer a conflict anymore. I'm all good. I'm all happy. I'm all good." But that echo still exists of, of Dexter's human side still saying, this relationship isn't right. And that is manifested in Elway's character in season 8. Elway is a representation of the leftovers of Dexter's humanity still trying to end this relationship, or expose this love for what it is. Anyway, so yeah, Dexter's love does not accept his human side, um, as well as Dexter's humanity not accepting the love that Hannah has to offer. Anyway, yeah, sometimes we lose control when we fall in love. Sometimes we have to choose our future. Choose our future with this person, and yeah, love can help us find. You can have a revelation with love. Love helps us find revelations in our life, in different ways. But anyway, so to move on to the last note, very last note, episode 12. Maria loves Dokes. Um, her love for Dokes, revives him. So you see that flashback of Dokes in the elevator. Um, so because Maria loves Dokes, he comes back and everything. But I actually put a lot of notes for episode 12. So what I can say is, um, Dokes represents Dexter getting caught. So Dokes coming back in this episode was reviving the idea of Dexter getting caught. The reason why Dexter would be getting caught is because of his love. And so that's why the theme of love showing up correlates with LaGuardia's love for Dokes. It's like a whole psychological chemistry thing. And I can't get into explaining all of that right now, but it's a whole chemistry thing. But also Hector Strada equal was a symbolism of survival. And but yeah, that was Hector's symbolism, is more of a survival. And the last note was Dexter's humanity becomes reborn when Deb shoots LaGuardia Maria and kills her. Um, this was the ultimate choice. Dexter's human side was like, am I really going to accept this dark side? Am I really going to accept this path? And Dexter's humanity ends up killing Dexter's focus. Now that Dexter's focus is killed off, well, now Dexter has nothing. He doesn't have anything anymore. He has nothing, no trajectory, nothing to balance him out. He has nothing to focus on. He has no direction anymore. So now, in this moment, it wasn't Dexter's dark side that killed, his sense of focus or his path in life, or it was his human side. It was that it was that Clark Kent that ends up killing the motivation of why Superman does what he does. It's that kind of symbolism there. April 6th. So, yeah, when you see that happen, that is ultimately seen as Dexter's dark side in this shipping container being reborn in blood, but now Dexter's human side has been reborn in blood. So now both of his sides are now infected with this corruption. And so now you see in season 8, Deb going through what she's going through is because Dexter's humanity is now fully infected with this darkness. And so now, whereas Superman can endure all this stuff, now it is Clark Kent who has to endure all this stuff. You know what I mean? And it's like, when you're the man or you're the person without the superpowers, how do you deal with these things, with these trials of life? And that's seen a lot in season 8. But yeah, LaGuardia dying represented, a sense of authority, but also a sense of focus in Dexter being killed off. So that's why he's so chaotic and out of control in season 8. This was a very hard season to get through, but I ultimately feel that it was helpful to whoever will listen to it. Thank you for listening to this. Season 7 is about love, and this is my last recording. No, yes, my last recording. I have to do Dexter New Blood. I am doing Dexter New Blood as individual episodes instead of the whole season in one. So just, I guess, look out for those individual episodes, all 10. And then, yeah, moving on to Dexter Resurrection. Um, yeah, so I really hope you enjoyed this and can't wait for Dexter Resurrection. I already recorded season 8, so this is technically my official goodbye for this project, I guess. But thank you for those who actually listened to it. And this was about love and Dexter's perspective of love, the TV show. Every note that I wrote down, everything that I discussed, was what I got from the show. It's not me preaching a philosophy or anything like that. It's just, this is what I got from the show. This is what the show helped me feel. And when I diagnosed how, those feelings were, I expressed them. So, um, when I say diagnosed, I mean I wrote one line for my notes, but the gravity of what that one note meant is what I'm explaining to you guys. Anyway, I just don't want to leave, which is why I'm tripping over my words. But I love you guys. Thank you for listening to this Movies with Love. You all have a great day. All right, here I am a few days later. So I gave a whole, I had some additional notes to talk about, and it was too complicated. Well, it was almost impossible to properly edit these notes into the video. So here I am at the end. After I closed the video out, there were a few things that bothered me, and there were 5 additional notes that I had that weren't written on that piece of paper on the note that I was reading at the time. But I wanted to quickly go by these last 5 notes. I actually already went over these notes a few minutes ago. I gave a speech for about 10 minutes on these, and turns out I was holding the wrong mic. So these five notes, I went really in depth, so it's going to be nearly impossible to go through to have the same energy as before. But hopefully, it still comes off as good. I don't remember what episode this was, but in this episode, Dexter was going after Hannah. And Harry was saying, maybe you can give her some slack and just let her go. She was kind of trying to survive, so does she really deserve your table? And Dexter was saying, yes, I have to kill her, I have to kill her. Dexter had this weird obsession with trying to kill Hannah. Why did he have that obsession with her? Well, a lot of times when we have certain characteristics or traits that identify with the intimate nature of who we are. A lot of times we will want to use that energy, reconnect with that energy, and intimately experience it with someone that we fall in love with, or we just, are attracted to or care about or whatever. So Dexter, his biggest PTSD, his biggest trauma, his biggest sense of intimacy was him being a serial killer, was him killing people. So that's why when he fell in love with Hannah and did what he did, that's why he had such a strong desire to want to kill her. It was because he just wanted a strong intimacy with her. And so, he did his whole thing, took her out on a date, and then took her to the room, wrapped her up in plastic, woke her up and was gonna kill her and everything, and do his thing, and then ended up not happening that way. He was gonna do his thing, do the deed, but it didn't work out. That was because, killing was his intimacy. Now, you may have been younger and you may have witnessed your parents fighting all the time and screaming at each other all the time. And so what happened is when you got older, sometimes arguing or fighting with your spouse, you may wonder, what's wrong with me? Why am I constantly yelling? Or, this person's perfect, this person's a good person, but I keep fighting with them and constantly trying to start fights. And it may be because yelling and anger and aggression, maybe even fear, are just parts of your sense of intimacy. A lot of times when we have our intimate energies, it becomes like I don't want to say a compass, but it becomes the way that we basically connect with people. So sometimes you may find someone, you really like them, and you get into a relationship with them, and then you do these things that make them want to leave you, or you get into a relationship, you fall in love with them or whatever, but then you leave and you abandon them, and you may think whatever, or but a lot of times you may have abandonment issues yourself. And abandonment may be that form of intimacy. It's that feeling that we create an identity for, and we called it abandonment, or that feeling that we had inside, and we gave it a name called rage, or violence, or abuse, or whatever, something along the lines of that. And so what ends up happening is those deep, intimate, complex emotions end up kind of being what we seek out in a partner, or deep down how we connect with a partner. And it may seem very strange when you're in a relationship and you care about someone, or maybe not in a relationship, but when you care about someone or you love them, and there may be all these, there may be a lot of this bad things, or like dysfunction between, certain behaviors, or whatever. And you may be like, why do I feel like I'm doing it on purpose to my partner? Or, why are they doing it? And it's maybe because you were treated a certain way, and because you were treated that certain way growing up, you reenacting those feelings is how you deeply connect with somebody. That's a weird subconscious thing that we do as people, as humans. When it comes to intimacy, really getting to that core part. And so don't be surprised if you had some terrible dysfunction in your past, and then you connect with somebody, and then you end up reenacting it. But it seems on purpose, but you're not sure why, or it's on accident, or you grew up with a narcissistic parent, so now you're in a relationship and you're being emotionally manipulative, or you want them to be emotionally manipulative with you, and that is causing you to go crazy. It's causing you to feel, just go crazy, and it's because that's how you intimately connect, is in that way. Intimacy isn't always, what they say, sexual, things like that. But anyway, I'm going to get out of that. I have to quickly go to the next note that I wrote. And this I really went in depth, and I'm sorry about this, but this was about this next scene was about Wayne and Hannah, and it was about when we lose someone that we love, when we lose someone we care about. We sometimes our emotions, how we feel about them, or what keeps us, or how we're connected to them. Love transcends time, universe, all that. Even when they're gone, we still feel that link with them. Sometimes the best thing to do is to, learn to just let that go, let it go, let whatever that rage, whatever it is, that rage, that their soul, their spirit is where it needs to be. They've had to shed and move on. Had to shed whatever, and you can still hold on to a lot of those bad, rageful emotions, and that's going to be the connection you have with that, with that spirit, with them, that person after they passed. Or once you let it go and you let love just happen, then you'll remember all the loving times that you've had together, and those loving memories is where their soul is going to be. Is where those this is going to be what keeps you connected with them. You can have a bad relationship with someone now, and then after they pass away, you may feel 10 times more. You may feel very strongly more in love with that person now that they're not here. Now that there's more of a sense of freedom there. Hopefully that answered everything. Um, there may actually have been an audio quality shift. Sorry about that. Anyway, something really doesn't want me to get through this edition. Next note. Um, Falling in love, we'll fall in love with somebody. It's normal to fall in love with somebody. And, if we do have some kind of a habit or whatever, then it's normal to say, hey, I feel whole, I feel complete, I feel good, and, the hole's not there. And then, you know, at times, sometimes it just, don't judge people for how they are trying to love. Just take it easy. I'll say that. It's just everyone loves in their own way. And, sometimes when we're going through something hard or harsh, some people will need a sense of humor to stay balanced and cope. Some people will need to just disassociate. Some people will need to disappear and grieve on their own without the pressure of everyone else. I don't know why I'm talking about grief right now, but sometimes when it comes to the matters of the heart, sorry, then we all love in our own way. So sometimes when someone acts weird, you don't just say you're not acting right, you're acting weird. If you really love this person, you would have done this. If you really love that person, you would have acted this way toward them, or you would act this way toward them. And it's not always like that. They could love this person just as a lot, but we all love in our own way, and we express love. And sometimes it's just sometimes having that patience to understand that no, there is a line. Yes, there is a line there. you know don't be like, this is how I choose to love, so I'm gonna throw this love at you, and if you don't accept it, that's your problem. And if you're not accepting the way that I love you, then you're just choosing to be a problem. Like, don't do that. Don't be that way. Don't, someone is treating you that way, don't tolerate that. Don't just be like, hey, I know that you're giving me all this stuff and everything, but stuff doesn't matter to me. The heart matters. I don't care about all this material stuff. It's like, oh, you're just ungrateful for everything that I do for you, and you don't like the way I give love. And they kind of guilt trip you into like not accepting the way they want to love you after you're like trying to explain it to them. It's like you can't. You know what I mean? Like, don't, if you don't have to deal with that, don't. But everyone's gonna love in their own way, and just know how to discern when that line's being crossed, or when loving someone in their own way becomes a bad thing versus someone loving in their own way and you not understanding it and creating a problem. There's a difference there between those two things. um the last note that I wrote, no, that's it. No, that's it. Thank you for listening to this, and you guys have thank you for listening to this. And yeah, have a good night. Thank you.